Call this to order. This is our work session budget workshop. Town Clerk, can we get a roll call, please?
Mayor Friedel,
Present.
Vice Mayor Toth,
Present.
Councilmember Earl,
Present.
Councilmember Calavianakis,
Here.
Councilmember Watts,
Here.
Councilmember McMahon, and Councilmember Skelecorn.
Rachel?
Good afternoon, everybody. It's 3 o'clock. Thank you for being here. We appreciate it. I've had a couple of questions as to how long is this going to take? Well, that's really up to you guys. Just as a reminder, this is our final budget workshop for the FY26 budget before it's brought forward for formal adoption. This is really, it's been a labor of love for Paul and company down there, B and Michael. Over the past several months, they've dedicated significant time and effort to developing a balanced budget that reflects the council's priorities, supports essential services, and addresses the diverse needs of our community. So those are the three kind of driving pieces of this. As with every year, the process is required. It requires thoughtful evaluation of competing priorities and the careful allocation of limited resources. Today represents that final opportunity for the council to propose any additions, deletions, or changes to the draft budget before it's finalized. Please note that a majority of the council will be required to give us direction on any of these modifications at this stage. That doesn't mean there isn't still time. We will still be bringing the budget back for formal, council action, where we'll actually propose the resolution and you'll pass it at a council meeting. But ideally, those changes at that point are hopefully at a minimum, if not zero. The idea today is to kind of get us through any last things. So we appreciate your continued engagement, and we look forward to a productive afternoon. With that being said, Paul's going to lead us through the review of the budget. This is kind of the culmination of things that we've talked about, the directions you've given, the CIP conversations we've had. I know there are a few of you who have mentioned a few questions about particular items. We can do a couple of things. We can pause when we get to those items if that's the right time to talk about them. If we do not get to them, we can bring them up at the end. That's certainly fine too. There's not really an assigned time, but we do want to make sure that we get clarity on everything. And there will be a couple of questions proposed for you guys to give some direction, particularly about cost of living for staff, as well as a number of conversation pieces and clarifications for, I think, a couple of CIPs. So, Paul, with that. Yes.
All right, good afternoon. Thank you for being here at 3 p.m. Appreciate it. And like Rachel mentioned, this is the culmination of all our efforts on discussion so far for the fiscal year 2026 budget. So this is the time to make changes, if necessary, before we come forth with the tentative budget next month. So just for everyone's knowledge, our proposed budget book is on our website, and we can refer to it as needed. If you want to get into the nitty-gritty or talk about departments or divisions at all, we can go look at the budget book a little bit. So I'll leave that up for us as well. When we're talking about budget authority, it's not the same as fund balance. Really, the budget is the permission to use money. We have the fund balance or cash in the bank. But today, when we're talking about budget, we're talking about the permission to use the money. So mayor and council provides that permission to us, town staff, to be able to carry out town initiatives. Contract authority is simply the terms and conditions agreed to by the town and the vendor within the contract. So that's a little bit different as well. So again, today we're talking about budget. The proposed budget that we're discussing today includes $50.37 million so far. And the expenditure limitation for next year is $36.58 million. So there's a difference. And so the difference and the way we can get underneath that has to do with exclusions. So some exclusions are allowed. In fiscal year 26, we're projecting exclusions of about $7.7 million. And as we've discussed, the town has saved or carried forward about $10.6 million of one-time exclusions from previous years, including HERF investment earnings and other exclusions. Now, one thing to note is that if our projected revenues do not come in as we expect, we'll have to restrict spending, basically. We'd have to look at our contingency first, restrict the spending or requesting the use of contingency first in our general fund, And if our general fund revenues are lagging even more than that, we'd have to look at other budgetary restrictions as well. So that's just something to consider. So this is just another way to illustrate that for the expenditure limitation. So that 50.371 million, how do we get under the expenditure limitation? Those first four items are projected exclusions for fiscal year 26, $4.3 million of grants, 1.89 million of HERF revenues, 967,000 of projected investment income, and 625,000 of other exclusions. And to be able to get underneath the expenditure limitation, we're projecting to spend about $6 million of that $10 million we've saved up to budget to be $1 under the expenditure limitation. Any questions on that? No. So staff remains conservative in our revenue projections. We use a 95% confidence level. And as we recently emailed you, recent flattening local sales tax revenues required us to reduce our preliminary projections for local sales tax revenue by about $250,000. And now our general fund is projected to bring in about $26.05 million next fiscal year. Also, we just recently received some state shared revenue estimates from the Arizona League, which we do every year in March, and that slightly increased our revenue projections. It positively impacted our general fund by $20,000 and about $70,000 our streets fund. So this is just illustrating that. State shared income taxes went up by about $100,000. State shared sales taxes went down by about $80,000, so $20,000 of increase in the general fund. Our HERF revenue projection went up by about $40,000, and our vehicle license taxes went up by about $30,000. Now, we talk about contingency a lot. I'm very thirsty, excuse me. So when we talk about contingency, when we come to council and ask to move contingency if we need it to do things that are unforeseen or unexpected, that's in our general government department and our general fund. And so this year, based on the budget today, it only provides budget authority for unforeseen expenditures if the revenues come in as projected. So as of today, we have $1.23 million of this contingency in the budget that we're discussing today. That would be reduced by any amount related to staff pay adjustments discussed today. So let's say there is a $300,000 impact to the budget for staff pay. That would reduce our contingency by that amount, the $300,000. So again, the contingency is our wiggle room. That's what we have if something goes wrong. It also is our buffer in case our revenues aren't coming in as projected. It's a very important part of our budget, so I just want to emphasize that. And everything discussed today, all the figures are going to include the recommended budget supplements that we'll discuss in just a little bit. So the amounts you see include the budget supplements. So this is simply just an illustration of that, of the general fund. We projected $26.05 million of revenues, and we've budgeted $24.82 million of department expenditures so far. And the wiggle room, or how we balance our budget in the general fund, is that contingency right there of $1.23 million. And again, that would be adjusted by any staff pay adjustments. So in total, across all funds, our proposed budget includes $50.37 million of budget. It's about a 10% increase from the current year, and a lot of that has to do with the increase in capital projects. We're talking about doing that Palomino reconstruction, as well as some of the other projects. So we've budgeted about $12.7 million in that fund, which is about $3.6 million in the prior year. So most of that $5 million increase is related to that, but there are going to be other things as well that we'll walk into and discuss. Our total projected revenues are going up by 4%, but a lot of that has to do with our change in methodology for projecting investment earnings. That right there is about $800,000 of the increase in projected revenues, as well as our special revenue fund increase that we'll discuss in a little bit. So for the most part, we're basically projecting about level revenues next year or similar to this year, other than those two factors. So recommended supplements. In the general fund, these are ongoing supplements, which means they would be included in the budget next year and going forward. Of course, they can be adjusted based on discussions and needs. Yes, Councilmember, do you have a question?
Yeah, sorry for interrupting you.
Fine.
You just got done saying that you're projecting level revenues, et cetera. And given the economy right now, I know nobody has a crystal ball. Is what's going on right now changing anything? I mean, I know you're presenting this, you're saying this, but at the same time, there are other things going on in the economy that might adjust this somehow.
Yeah, so, Councilmember, basically, that's why we have our contingency, at least as our starting point. That's our wiggle room. So if things start going south, we can start there. We have policies in place to restrict our spending and things like that. So we actually had a pretty good March, which I'll discuss at one of the next council meetings. So it's kind of funny. It's kind of going up and down right now. So we'll have to, we monitor it every month. So really, we have a lot of protocols in place to manage that and keep track of that. But yeah, we don't have a crystal ball, so we'll have to see how it goes. Absolutely.
If I can just tag on to that really quickly. You're absolutely right. I mean, the economy and all of the headlines that we've been watching over the last couple of weeks are concerning. It is also why we take the conservative efforts that we do, right? We've had some really good years the last couple of years, right? Because we've said, we don't want to get too far over our skis. The same policies apply now, so that we will make sure that we kind of stay in tune with that. That is what the contingency is for. That is why we do have policies, so that we don't get, we are able to kind of pull those levers if needed. But yeah, we continue to watch that. But our conservative estimates help us out to make sure that we're hopefully in line with that.
Yeah, and we also have general fund, in our policies, we have general fund reserve requirements, which is just to protect us from being able to continue operating. And so if we can't meet those reserve requirements, that's another thing that would require us to restrict our spending and look into things like that. So yeah, it's a little of an uneven time. I'm not saying I'm extremely confident, but I'm saying that we have protocols in place to evaluate that. So I appreciate the question. So in the general fund, so we talked about the environmental fund or program supplements at length a few times, but basically we used to use another fund, the environmental fund, for these expenditures, and this year we're moving them to the general fund. So it looks like we're adding a lot to the general fund, but we're really just shifting a lot of the spending. The only thing that's really changed a decent amount is the wash maintenance amount. That has increased from prior years at $450,000. That's actually more than we discussed at the last retreat. We increased it just because of recent discussions and recognizing a need for wash maintenance. So the proposed budget includes $450,000 for that purpose. But in total, environmental program supplements is over $700,000 in the general fund, right there in the red box. One other thing to note is the ballroom movable wall maintenance. If we are able to install a new one this fiscal year, we would remove that from the fiscal year 26 budget. And the other ones we haven't really discussed. If you have any questions, we have department directors here available to answer any questions, or I could try to respond. Some of them just relate to increasing budgets for increased cost for maintenance, an upgrade for windows, and putting a little bit of more money into our parks for new amenities, like at Desert Vista Park. Our pocket parks include Panorama Park, which should be done pretty soon, Centennial Circle, and the planned new stargazing park as well. Yes, Councilmember?
I know we briefly talked about this yesterday, the MS4 permit and inspection fees. What are they? Justin knew better than...
I kind of know, but I'll probably butcher it, so.
Hello all. So the MS4 is our stormwater requirements that we need to meet per ADEQ and the county and the state. It essentially requires us to have that consultant on board that helps us with the reporting, annual reporting, as well as wet and dry monitoring, wet and dry season monitoring, and training for the staff.
So what's MS stand for?
Municipal, let's see, it's 4 S's. Municipal,
I think you just got
sewer.
I think you just got saved by the bell.
Municipal storm sewer, that's what it is.
Municipal storm sewer. MSS.
Yes.
Thank you.
Saved by the bell. We discussed all these supplements in length. I didn't really mention that, so we gain an understanding of them. And per our discussion with Public Works, most of these are absolutely required things that we need to do that we've been doing from another fund. Vice Mayor, did you have a question?
I did, and I'm really sorry to put him on the spot, but Kevin, would you mind explaining the new amenities, operations, and maintenance, how we got to that 37,000 number? I see a difference in the recommendation there.
So the 15,000 is what we're including in the proposed budget based on discussions.
Yeah, so what happened is because this was first being talked about when we were still talking about completing the stargazing park before.
Got it.
And since it's not there, there's no sense in having this much funding in it. So that's
Thank
why it got
you.
used. Sure.
These are ongoing supplements and other funds in the general fund. The first three we talked about at one of the council retreats at least. From the Economic Development Division, Amanda, she'd like to do more things with some of the downtown funding, including event programming, the downtown facade improvement program, and banner replacements. This will increase the downtown fund to about $165,000 per year. We're bringing in, our projections are closer to $135,000 per year, but we're bringing in a little more than that. So we feel comfortable because we have about $700,000 saved up in this fund to budget that much, and these are the items that have been discussed with council. The last one we haven't discussed with council, the downtown digital marketing, that would be paid out of the Economic Development Fund with, I think the idea is a retention for businesses, but really it's related to the downtown and marketing for the downtown. So Amanda's here if you have any questions on those. Councilmember Watts.
The downtown facade improvement program, can I get a description of what that is?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Watts. So we talked about that back in December, as well as our February 25th retreat. So with the downtown facade improvement, we're budgeting $50,000, and we'll come back to council in September with a policy. But we're hoping specifically within the full downtown boundary that we'll have what we'll call a grant program, is what some municipalities do, to basically do a facelift of the exterior facades for some of our older buildings. So it could be paint, it could be installing awnings, but there'll be a process. So right now we're asking council for the $50,000. Right now, staff, so development services, economic development, we're working on a policy that we're hoping to talk one-on-one with council in August. We'll then present it in September, and then if council gives the green light, it'll probably take 30 to 60 days to then go live and promote it.
So I appreciate the reminder on the dates and the number of time we've talked about this, but I don't remember what I had for breakfast, so bear with me. Do we have an issue, and this is probably for the town attorney, do we have an issue related to gifting? If we're going to do facades, give money for facades, do we have an issue there, or is that one of the bugs we're trying to work out?
So the answer, Mayor and Councilmember Watts, are in part, there's always a concern when you have a subsidy issue, right? Where you want to be careful with what you're doing. But one of the nice things about facade improvement programs is that the legislature has identified those as districts and programs that can be appropriately undertaken. So that cabins that risk a lot more.
Thank you. Thank you, Amanda.
You're welcome. And we always make sure that Aaron makes sure we're dotting our I's, crossing our T's before it goes to council. Any other questions on the digital marketing? I heard there may have been a question or saw a light. Are we good with that? Okay.
I have a question too. Again, it's on the downtown facade improvement program. It does seem like this is the kind of cart before the horse, and I know we've talked about this in the past. I think programs like this are fraught with possible fraud, with businesses getting the money and not getting the work done. And specifically today, as far as budgeting is concerned, to give the authorization for $50,000, and then later you're going to tell us what the policy is, and go into the weeds, the deep dive. I don't know why we have to approve the $50,000 today. Why can't we do it later after you show us what we're going to get for the money and an actual program?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Calavianakis, two responses to that. One, it's making sure, so this council, there have been times, as you well know, in November or December, I'll come back and ask for a budget transfer, and you guys have been supportive, so again, thank you very much. But sometimes you get questions from the residents of, why wasn't staff planning this ahead? Why are they coming? Do we have money for this? So it's a placeholder. So even though it's July 1st, doesn't mean it's Christmas time, we start spending it. It's then doing the policy and then being able to implement. Otherwise, then we're having to come back to council and ask. The other point to that is, again, since we have talked about it in December and February, I feel like the majority of council has directed staff to move forward with this. So if there's a different direction from the council, we can certainly remove it and approach it a different way.
And again, just to follow up, it seems to me that with some of these projects like this, today's placeholder becomes tomorrow's directive. That you told us 6 months ago to go ahead, we went ahead and did all this kind of stuff. And then it's not a placeholder anymore. It's like we were given direction 6 months ago to proceed. So I just hope in 6 months from now, when we do go forward and actually allocate the funds, that we remember that we did not direct you to do anything other than give us a policy. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Okay.
And maybe that policy has in it that the work gets done before we disperse the funds. That would take care
That's
of.
all, yes, that
Yeah.
is all part of the
Yeah.
policies, dotting the i's, crossing the t's.
I figured it would be.
Any other questions on these funds while I'm up here? Seeing none.
Thank you, Amanda. Great, so the court security, that one we discussed, I think, at the first council retreat. It was recommended by, I believe, the county court system that we bring on security, which we will start having next fiscal year, part-time in front of the municipal court. And the last item is just for our special taxing district, the Cottonwoods Maintenance District, for increased landscaping costs. So it's included in that budget for the extra $1,000. With personnel supplements, there are 6 total. It is, I think the descriptions are a little bit misleading. We're not adding any staff for any of these except for the final one, which relates to a street maintenance technician to give the Public Works Department another streets person to help, maintain the streets and clean up and things like that. All the rest related to community services and parks, those two, so 0-01 and -05, that relates to either providing additional shifts or it's basically additional shifts for staff during high season times when there's more people at the community center. We need more help with events and things like that. The middle two relate to the fire department. The first one, the captain to battalion chief item, that relates to next year's impact for the fire department revised command structure for the automatic aid application. It's about $222,000 based on our calculations. One thing to note is that the full plan is to also add another $110,000 the following year to complete that revised command structure. We do have Fire Chief out here to discuss as needed. We also have a couple of visuals in case that helps. But those are the fire department supplements right there. Any questions or discussion? Yes, Vice Mayor.
If it's all right, I would like to see the visuals on the fire department.
Give me a second. It's not the most advanced visual, but it is a visual, and I think it does help. Where did I save that? Michael, would you mind actually coming to explain this? Because Michael's been our finance expert working with the fire department on this. It's somewhat complicated, so he would explain it most accurately.
Mayor, Council, this is a organizational chart for the fire department. The actual blue there is is the current organization. And what's showing there in the red boxes is basically what we're looking at doing. It would add 3 new battalion chiefs in next year. Those are above the captain level. So we'd have promotions of captains into the battalion chief position. It would also, sorry, going back down to the bottom box there to finish out 26. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. So we create the battalion chiefs, the captains are moved up to battalion chief. That creates vacancies in the captain spots. So we have engineers that move up into captains. Likewise, vacates spots in the engineers, so firefighters move up into the engineer spot. So that's the cascading promotions that we're seeing in the current year for 26. 27 is the next step that Paul referred to, is adding the battalion safety officers. Those are below the captains and go along with the battalion chiefs. That again could see some cascading promotions of engineers and firefighters. So ultimately, when this is all done, you'd have, looking at this chart here, you'd have a new box there for the battalion chiefs, a new one for the battalion safety officers, and there are a number of firefighters, because we are looking to do with this with the same number of people, so not adding people, just moving different positions. It would reduce the number of firefighters at Station 1 to just 6. The total number of people still at the station are the same, they're just in different positions, because you'd have 3 battalion chiefs, 3 captains, 3 battalion safety officers, 3 engineers, and then the 6 firefighters. So that's in total over the 2 years. But this first step is just the battalion chiefs and then backfilling the promotions to fill the vacated captain and engineer spots.
Thank you. And I'm sorry,
Okay.
but to clarify, this is not adding any staff over the 2 years. This is fully promotions and the new role.
Correct. This is to be done with our existing staff, number of people.
One other thing I'd like to, sorry, Michael. One other thing I'd like to note, there was another supplemental request, is that training captain below the assistant fire chief to create 2 of those positions instead of having that training captain position. We evaluated from a budgetary perspective, and it's pretty much a break even. That's why it shows up as $1. But it would create a little bit slightly revised command structure above them as well. And we are including that in the proposed budget as well. So those are the 2 fire department personnel supplements.
Councilwoman Earl?
That's a big jump, over 200,000, 200, whatever it was, for promotions all at once. This may be an odd question, but if we didn't have our own fire department, would all these fire people get these same promotions? I mean, is this just?
I would probably bring up Fire Chief Ott to touch on the command structure.
Good afternoon. If we did not have our own fire department and it was either still with Rural Metro, we would be greatly understaffed in the command side of things. If we did have another provider providing our fire service when McGrath did the study, Scottsdale was an option to look at to provide fire service here, we would have that command structure.
Were we aware that we might have this big jump, and would this happen again? I mean, this is like, is it customary to give so many people an increase at the same time?
Well,
Promotion at the same time?
Council member, they're filling those positions as bump up positions, so we're just moving them into that. There is a little bit of added cost that goes with that when you make that a full-time position with the benefits and the rest of that. And that's where Paul and Michael have helped a lot with being able to get that where it needs to be. We also had a little disparity on our last year budget where all of the salaries were not really included the way that they should have been in there. And had that happened, I think we would have seen a little bit less of a jump in there, just because it would have, the different line items in the salaries would have compensated for some of that. But in the grand scheme of things, it's not, in what we're doing, we're really moving 3 people up and then replacing those 3 people. So it would be the captains being promoted to battalion chiefs, and then engineers or other acting captains being promoted into the captain spots. So it does have a trickle up effect with it. I think that this is the most cost-effective way that we've been able to kind of create what we need to do to have that command structure through here, so that we can kind of keep everything rolling safely, and we can give the best quality of service to the residents, business owners, and visitors.
And are they increasing their hours of work?
Not their hours of work, their responsibilities. My hours of work may go down with this new structure, but you don't pay for me working 120 hours a week. So.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you, Chief Op. I think I recall that you saying that these inner promotions recognize the services and the talents that we have promoting from within. It's going to be safer. It's going to be more in line with other departments as far as commanding out on the field, having the firefighters be safer, and having it be more time cost effective, correct?
Correct.
With these promotions. I mean,
Correct.
that's what I remember you saying about these, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks to Paul, we've kind of worked this out a little bit earlier, so he served me a watermelon up here. So a battalion chief really kind of has the incident command responsibilities on any fire medical scene that is more than a 1-unit response. So if we get called because you fell at your house or you have a snake or whatever, that captain is fully capable of managing that incident with that single unit. Once you get above 2 units, it's really difficult for that captain on that engine to be able to manage that incident safely. And a battalion chief ends up being the incident commander for those. And as we build, an example was the fire that we had last week. We ended up with 12 units on there. Through our mutual aid partners and the automatic aid system, we ended up with 3 different battalion chiefs there, which once you go to multiple units, having an incident commander and then the safety officers be part of that, that just ensures that the best outcome for the personnel on the scene, for the homeowner that has that, and the homeowners that are adjacent to it. That added command structure is really what keeps that scene moving and moving safely, to where it's very hard for one person to be in control of a dynamic scene that keeps moving like that. That's the same with multiple vehicle crashes. We don't see a lot of them in town, but we also supplement on the beeline. And for us, in my opinion, one of the most dangerous things that we do right now is go on a vehicle collision. Most other valley departments, if it's a crash related to one of the highways or freeways, they always have a battalion chief on that, because that adds one more layer of safety into that scene. So for both the people in the crashes and the people on the scene, police officers included.
Chief, listen, we all love you guys and the service you provide. You're very efficient and very safe all the time, but I think, personally myself, looking at this, I think it's a big jump the first year, a little over a year in, and maybe that we need to think about maybe waiting a year on this, because we have a lot of questions with our budget going forward. We've discussed that. We've talked about the uncertainty in the marketplace and some of the driving factors that make up this budget and our income. Is it something that we could wait a year on?
Mayor, I'll tell you that it's your money and you can wait as long as you want. I think that the increase in service that it gives us and the increase in our value to the automatic aid system is well worth it. And at the $220,000 in this first year, I think we will see benefits from that by our inclusion in the automatic aid system. At some point when we get down to it, our volume of calls is going up, And I'll go back to the fire last week as an example. During that fire, we had 3 additional EMS calls during that fire. Mutual aid, we might not always get that backup unit to be able to provide service to it. Automatic aid, they're going to automatically dispatch a unit for those EMS calls. So from my standpoint, it's hard to say, who do we respond to? Do we pull a unit from the fire to respond to EMS calls in town in case we're not getting a mutual aid unit to respond to us? Or will we be an automatic aid and the next closest unit will respond regardless of where they're coming from? I don't have to pull a unit from it. I don't have to pick which EMS calls that we don't run on. I don't have to pick which EMS calls that we say, we'll just let them wait for an ambulance only make that call. We're still providing a high level of service to our residents who, for whatever reason, need us when we're depleted at that point.
We could still apply for automatic aid though, right? Even if we didn't do these promotions right now?
We can apply for it, but our inclusion in the auto aid system is probably more attractive to be able to say that we're offering a service that doesn't already currently exist on this side of it. The closest BC on the Scottsdale side is coming from about 96th Street or 94th Street. So there's a delay on that. And if it's not in automatic aid, it would be a mutual aid. And if they were doing something else, then that would be, we would not get that response. The inclusion is, I don't want to say contingent on having BCs, but it definitely makes that decision a whole lot easier for the rest of the Valley departments to say, yeah, we can include Fountain Hills in there, and they're not a drain on the system. So,
how long does that application process take?
They don't happen all the time. New departments don't start up all the time. It's kind of contingent on the presentation to the Central Arizona Life Safety Council and executive board when they meet and when they would make that decision to bring it back to the rest of the Life Safety Council. So it could take 3 months, it could take 6 months, it could take a year. A year would be on the worst case scenario.
Councilwoman?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is another one of those, and Rachel, I might want to bring you on this as well. We have workshops, and then we have retreats, and then we have agendized items. This appeared on a workshop, and that would be the initial kind of go ahead, not go ahead. I was at the meeting, I remember the meeting. Some people were for, some people were against. When I left, I didn't have a clear indication of what our guidance was at that time. And so then now we are here at the retreat. And so I would call on you, Rachel, do you recall what guidance we gave at the time during the workshop?
Yes, I would say I took quite a bit of notes about this topic in particular because it was confusing, and there's two questions sort of at play here. We have the application to automatic aid, right, and that is a part of this process, and we have the promotions that support that, although it was called out that they can stand separately, i.e., to your point, just as Chief Ott said, yes, we can make the application without the promotions. They do not have to go together, though, as he just explained, it makes it more attractive if they do. That being said, the majority felt like they wanted to move forward with automatic aid. I think there may have been some confusion as to, does automatic aid mean all of these other fees and costs, budgetary impacts? And so I've had a number of conversations with a number of different council members offline since that meeting, which is why we took a little extra time to talk about it today, because there was some confusion. So at the meeting, there was direction, yes, we want to do this. Well, okay, that's fine, we can do that. As Chief Ott said, if that's what we want to do and that's the priority, we can certainly budget that in and make that happen. However, if we don't, today's that day to make that direction. To your point, we get a couple bites at the apple, but this is sort of the last bite at it. So if there is a different direction, now's the time. If the direction is stay the course, apply for automatic aid, initiate these 2 years of promotions, then so be it. That's exactly what we'll do. But we want to make sure that everybody understands that automatic aid and the promotions, while they complement each other, they don't necessarily have to go together. So, and if I am misstating anything, Chief, please correct me, because I know you and I have talked about it quite a bit too, so.
You did an excellent job.
And so my last question would be, since we don't take votes at retreats or at workshops, then how do we divine the tea leaves?
Oh, I'm going to go right down the line. I need a head nod. I need a something. if this is something you want to see included, because when it comes back at a regular agenda item, and there is a aye or nay, it should be consistent with what the direction was today.
Yeah, because I would be for that, because once again, it gets brought up several different, like you said, bites of the apple. And then all of a sudden, the last bite is on the agenda, and we get this large number, and then we all say, well, no, that's too much money. And I'd like to avoid that by, if we're going to give guidance that we're going to go ahead with this, I'd like to give the guidance now, so we
I
can
would
move
too.
ahead as compared to letting it go and having it in a gray area. So that's what I'd like to.
I feel very much the same. Thank you.
Yeah, Captain, I recall the conversation very similar to how our town manager described it. We said we could, but this would be a better way to go, to make the promotions. But I also think that maybe we should roll the dice. But my concern is, how much of this has been conveyed to rank and file so far? Are they anticipating the promotions?
Councilmember, I'd say not necessarily anticipating, but we are a pretty open department when we talk about the direction of the department and how things are going and what ideally is the best scenario. Bumping people up, working them out of their title to get the job done, I don't think is, in the long run, is the best way to move through that. And people want to know, because we have a process for promotion that is somewhat different than maybe a lot of other departments, not fire departments, but other municipal departments, and that there are task books that the firefighters need to complete. They need to do some education. They need to work through that. So the question is, if we're going to promote BCs, what does that process look like? What do I have to do to be eligible to do that? So we've started that process so that at the point where, if this does become a reality, we've got people that are ready to go, and we can say, as an example, if you would agree with this, the first part of July, we would start our interviews for the battalion chief. All those candidates already have all of their task books done with all of their requirements for it. So much like a prerequisite if you're trying to advance yourself in a college career. So that process has already started. It's not something that we could have done July 1st and said, oh, those positions were approved. Now we have people that could be 9 months behind on trying to be eligible to promote. So that's there. I'm pretty open about telling people that I don't believe that the check's good until I actually have the cash in my hand. So with that being said, that even if it was approved until the budget's signed and the money is still there, it's not a done deal in my mind. It doesn't matter whether we're talking positions or equipment or other services. So.
But there is some degree of anticipation?
I think that in any fire department, there's always an anticipation for the people that are motivated, that want to promote and look at where they're at. With our structure the way it is, it's you're kind of topped out as a captain. But if those BC positions open up, that's motivation for our longer-term employees to kind of move out of their current positions in captains as a captain. But I don't think that and I can speak for myself, that guarantee of a promotion is never in any line of work that you go into. So I think that there are some people that are very hopeful that at some point we would have battalion chiefs that they could promote into, and battalion safety officers. That has more inward movement up for people to promote to engineers, and it kind of gives you some place to go. That's one of the downsizes of a small department, is that if you have people that are going to work 15 or 20 more years in a captain's position or in a position above you, you're always looking at well, I'm going to be a firefighter, and unless I go somewhere else, I will never have the chance to promote. But That's just the downside of a 30-person department, so.
Well, I don't think it's only the downside of a 30-person department, it's the real world. If you're in a small company and you've got 20, 30 people and you only have so far up the ladder you can go, and you're always looking for going from an apprentice to a journeyman and so on and so forth. To tag on to the coattails of Councilmember Toth, I'm not real clear. I've heard we're adding people, firefighters, we're not adding them. What's the actual head count going to be when we're done as compared to it is today?
We would still be at 31 in the field. If we promote the training captain to a assistant chief, which is kind of a negligible dollar amount, we would still end up with the 30 people in the field. The only time that we're adding new employees is if we have someone leave and we have to fill that position.
But that's a replacement, not an ad, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. The ad, I think that we're pretty safe in the next couple of years of not having to add people. There are the conversations that we've had previously, and again, I don't really want to be standing up here and asking you to start an ambulance company. I've had a recent meeting with AMR. They're fully committed to being around and providing 911 service for us, so hopefully before I retire, I won't have to come to you and ask for money for ambulances and personnel. Outside of that, unless I've got it on good knowledge that the state trust land's got a lot of interest in it, we may need to add a fire station. That would be another cost, but we're doing that to increase the level of service to the community. And if the state trust land was developed, I think that that's going to be the tipping point of saying that we need to add more people for another station. With the other development, potential development coming in, I think that we can handle that call or those calls with the current staff that we have. Again, automatic aid is going to be a key to that if we do have an increase in volume of calls, we have our regional partners here to support us.
Okay, so I see no reason not to go forward with the automatic aid, at least the application. 2 questions and I'll let you go. So we have said that this will make the town safer. By not doing it, will we be less safe?
I would say that maybe not less safe, but not as safe. I know it's splitting words there, but I think that this is the best and safest structure for the town. It provides the best level of safety for the residents. It also provides a better quality of life for our residents in the fact that we've got the best command structure in place for any multiple incidents that could go on.
Okay. And this may be for our town manager. Are the COLAs included on top of this, or they're not on top of this, so they're inclusive in these numbers?
So Councilmember, the 222 is, Michael, correct me if I'm wrong. The 222 is before adding any cost, because we don't know the cost of living adjustment yet. That would be on top.
Right, that's,
Yeah.
So I had it backwards.
right.
Yeah.
So,
Right, Michael? Yes, okay.
so it seems to me like it's, anyway, I shouldn't say it.
Well, it's a challenging conversation. I really appreciate you all having it. We've talked about it extensively internally, so it's a good conversation to have in the public. There's a lot of challenges with the fire department. We've learned that this year. I personally have learned it. It's a lot different than the rest of our staff and how they work. And they have a lot of backfill requirements where if someone calls in sick, you have to have another guy cover the shift, and it creates additional overtime. So there's a lot of challenges already. But the intention of this is really just to create a better command structure to be aligned with other local governments providing similar levels of service. So that's the ideal, but yes, there is a cost. And the reason it costs so much is not only because really when you look at that chart, it's like you're adding 3 battalion chiefs and just backfilling, but all the backfilling where people are filling in for higher positions, that creates assignment pay in a fire department. You can't just tell them to do additional duties without paying them. There's a lot of regulations around that, especially from a fire department perspective. So yes, it's a big number, but there's a lot of thought that has gone into the number and why it's that big. So I think we've covered what needs to be covered in our calculations, and we're bringing you what we believe it will cost.
So maybe this year we consider something like we make the promotions but don't include them in the cost of living increases. And that's kind of a median, so that we temper it somewhat for the year.
We can, whatever, mayor and council directs the budget and approves the budget, we can make whatever changes.
I don't know if that's discriminatory or not. If we do, it's not. Okay, so we could do something like we said, okay, these promotions are all applicable, but you're not included in the whatever, the 2.5%, 3.5%, whatever we come up with as far as cost of living increases.
We could calculate that based on the direction, yes. So if it's the 9, so it would impact 9 positions next year, right? The 3 battalion chiefs and backfilling, I believe 9 positions? Yes. So then if that were to happen, yes, we could not add the cost of living adjustment to those individuals that get those promotions. So we could do something like that if that's the direction of mayor and council.
Well, I don't want to pick on on the 9. I'd probably pick on the entire department.
So if that were the case, council member, those 9 would get a promotion, which would increase their pay, and the remaining would have the same pay next year. So that's how that would work out.
One way or another, somebody's going to pay a price here. There's going to be some turmoil of some sort. Somebody's not going to be happy about it, is really what it's going to come down. So I think it's going to be more talk, more consideration. So thank you.
Right. And it's understandable because the fire department, now it's our biggest department. It has 1/3 of the town's staff, 1/3 of our payroll costs. So when we're talking about anything going forward involving the fire department, which is relatively new to the town of Fountain Hills, there's going to be a large cost associated with it. That's just the truth of the matter. And yes, the $222,000 is a lot. It's also out of a $5.9 million budget. So there's perspective in from any direction you look at it, but that's just my perspective.
Thanks.
Thank you. Chief Ott, you're up again, please. I think that when we were talking about this last time, it averaged out to about $30,000 a person, but I have a question. I mean, I'm for this because of safety, and that's why you're serving our town, to provide the absolute amount of safety that you can for our town, health and welfare, and of course for the firefighters. But when I look at this chart and it says promoting 3 people, et cetera, can you, and hopefully I'll ask this appropriately, can you maybe a point or, move one of them up, 1 or 2, and then wait a year to promote another one, et cetera? Will that, lessen the cost for this year, and then, have that other cost for the 27? Do you understand what I'm saying? Instead of promoting 3 or 4 or 5 people, what could you, if you promote 1 person or et cetera to battalion or whatever it is, that's still going to help you. It's still going to make it safer, but you may not have to request so much money this year, right?
That's a good question. If we did, because we work 3 different shifts, it would be the 3 different battalion chiefs. So we could do 3 and then do the battalion safety officers either as a bump up or because there would be some training involved in that. So it wouldn't necessarily be 6 right away, but we would have 3 to go to battalion chiefs. We could also work a little bit of time in there with bumping acting engineer or acting captains up, whether they're engineers or firefighters. We've got a number of acting captains that are firefighters. So all of those spots would be filled. They would just be backfilled. I know Michael had done a lot of work on some of it to where there's some disparity, if you will, between the current wage and that bump up, which is typically 10% to fill that spot on a daily basis, or where it breaks even to do the promotion to put them in that spot opposed to what the increase for the out-of-title pay would be.
Okay.
And one other thing on the COLA, if I can add to it, and don't mean to step on Paul's toes, but depending on when the COLA increase goes in, it might not affect those positions as promotions. Because if they were in that position when the COLA went into place, then they would get that added percentage to it. If they were in a captain's position, they might get that COLA on their captain's wages, not necessarily on that upper wage as a battalion chief.
So we got to do this quick?
We do it quick, we can do it slow. Rip the Band-Aid off however you like.
Thank you.
Let me touch on it real quick and respond. I'm hoping I'm not confusing the conversation anymore. It is a very complicated calculation when we're calculating how much this would affect the budget. So what Chief Ott was talking about with, bumping up staff to fill in some of those positions, that creates costs too, because we have to pay them assignment pay. So it might, in some cases, it actually costs more to bump someone up with assignment pay than to do the promotion. So it's an extremely convoluted conversation. And we couldn't really estimate that cost without going back through the calculation process, depending on what Mayor and Council's direction is today. So just wanted to make that clear.
I'm trying to backtrack, and I think I'm realizing you've answered my question, but I'll still say it out loud in case someone else is still confused, if that's okay. I think several of my fellow council members are trying to find some level of middle ground. It's sounding as though you have your 3 shifts, so it would need to be 3 and 3. And it's sounding as though this amount includes training as well as the pay for the promotion. If it averages out to $30,000 per person, is there a way to make it average out to $15,000 per person? Is there wiggle room?
Vice Mayor, so the amounts we're presenting today are for the salaries and benefits, so the payroll, not the additional training. I'm guessing, and he can speak to this, but I'm guessing the fire department has sufficient training budget to take on those needs, but he could talk about, but it's payroll that we're talking about.
Okay, this is strictly payroll.
Payroll and
Okay.
benefits, health insurance, things like that, all included in that amount.
Then I'm really glad I asked my question because I misunderstood it. But Chief, I guess my question still remains, do we have wiggle room on this?
I think we always have wiggle room. And did I congratulate you on your upcoming wedding yet?
Oh, thank you, Chief. Now that you're asking for money, huh?
Again, there's always a little bit of wiggle room in there. It would take us a little bit of time to do the process, and there's still the costs involved in bumping the people up, and we really have to do that to make sure that we have the coverage that we need. Regardless of if we're an auto aid or not, this is still the safest structure for the department here, and especially in the mutual aid setting where we won't always get a battalion chief to come in. So we will have people functioning in those positions, but not at the promotion rate. So there's, I think, enough room to cover some of the bump ups into that position, but we still have that level in there. So this just makes it that we're not bumping somebody up, that we're not working them out of title more than they should be, and putting them in a titled position, if you will.
If I can follow up, I guess my concern is obviously I don't want you having to work 120 hours a week. And I want to pay our people fairly. However, it is a tough year to do it. And understanding that it's much more complicated than saying, oh, we just pay the promotion less. I really would love to hear some alternatives because I want to find a way to make it work. It's hard for me to just say, okay, apply for the automatic aid and we're not going to do anything. Anyway, I guess I'm kind of thinking out loud, but I want to find a way to make you and your guys as happy as we can, but also keeping an eye out for what's looking like a very tight year.
I appreciate that, and keeping the guys happy is not, I don't want to say this in the wrong way, but in being able to run the department in the most efficient, cost-effective way is what the important part is here. Okay, the crews that are up here, they're great. They understand a lot of things. They do things because they like being up here. It's kind of and if you've known me over the last years that I've been able to manage the budget here, I don't spend money that, we don't have a lot of wants that I buy. The majority of everything is a need, and I don't really come to you unless it is a need. And we can work within the parameters that you give us. At some point, this is the best structure to serve the town, regardless if we do automatic aid or mutual aid. At some point, part of the automatic aid process has a overall plan in it, and what your plan would be and how are you going to do that. I personally have a hard time going in saying that we would, using these positions as an example, in my auto aid application to say, oh, in next year and the year after that, we're going to have battalion chiefs and battalion safety officers. Again, the money's not in my hand. I have a hard time committing to a group of regional fire chiefs to say, this is where we're going to be. Everybody deals with the budget. They understand budget cuts. They understand that things, when money comes in, when money doesn't come in, but it's just the going in and saying, this is what our plan is in a year or 2 years. We're going to have this structure to support the rest of the region. And without having some kind of direction on that, I would have a hard time to include that. But they're going to want that in the application, which what our overall plan is. So.
Yes, I want to know, pardon me, if it was just a year ago, why did we not start with this format with all these positions, and why a year later?
The overall plan was to come in as close to what the original structure had been under the previous budget, and to use Director Weldy's words, the previous town management, and really not knowing what was going to be affected or how we could best serve the town. We're still kind of in that growing process, right? There's some other things that we had to do this year and probably coming into next year that we might not have to do in FY '28 or '29. So it is a growing period, and I think it was just kind of an eye-opener on my side to how maybe inefficiently we were able to work under the private company that we were currently or previously under. There were some things that were not necessarily in the best interest of the town, but were not in the town's control to improve or maintain without what would have been. I just don't think they could have done it. So we're at a point now where we're finding out, even though we thought it worked very well, that it didn't work as well as it should work or it could work.
And I understand you're here asking us if it's okay. We're not asking you if it's okay. Which some of you are asking, yes, it's okay to him. You're here to ask us. I'm comfortable with like half the increase, but this is a huge increase right now. So I don't know how that would work for you. You guys work that out, but if these promotions weren't as big a promotion for each one or down the road?
I'm open on our side to see what we can do to kind of make that work. If we've got a happy medium and you're telling me where you think we should be budget-wise, I think that there's some very smart people on Paul's side, and with Dave Trimble's help as well, I think we can kind of maybe massage that to where it's getting us to where we need to be.
Okay.
Maybe not July 1st on with all of that, but we can take a look at the numbers, and again, as the town manager had said, this is not the last bite at the apple, but we're getting closer to where we want to have it polished and a little bit better. So,
Councilwoman Earl, we could do the best we can looking at the numbers again. The challenge is all the backfilling requirements. You know, we can't just do the 3 promotions, and we have 3 shifts. So I mean, Chief Ott, if we're able to just do an actual battalion chief in one shift, I don't know that would really serve the residents well. That would be the way we find savings, but really, we've looked at all avenues, and what the fire department would like to do, that's the cost.
So it's a set price. You're saying that there's no adjusted price for each position? That if you're a battalion chief, you have to get a certain amount?
There's a range, and we actually conservatively looked at those ranges based on the possible staff that would move up, and they're all relatively in the same place on the range that they would be in the higher range, which is towards the lower end. There's not a lot of wiggle room to find savings in those calculations at this
And
point.
if there's no middle road, then the other option is we don't do it this year. We wait another year. You're saying you're better off doing that than
It's
doing it a little
yeah, sorry, I didn't.
less expense to us?
Right. I mean, if we don't do it this year, it would be $222,000 less in our budget. That would likely result in general fund savings, and hopefully excess reserves if our revenues come in well. I think the key thing to know is, I think the fire department will be back here next year asking for the same thing. And you know, we'll have to see how the revenues look year after year, just like we do. So it's the fire department's position that this is important for the town. It will better serve the residents. The money is the hard part, right? Because we're a challenging financial position. I just looked at our sales tax revenues, which I'll present to mayor and council at some point soon. We had a good month, so we have had a couple good months. We've had a couple bad months recently. So it's really fluctuating a lot more than it has. And the future is, it's hard to predict. So, you know, but again, Chief Ott's going to be here next year asking for the same thing if it doesn't move forward this year.
My other question is, once you fill the structure the way you want it now, it will always be this structure. So we wouldn't have somewhere down the road where we're going to have this huge changing 6 or 9 positions.
No.
That's it.
And that's a good question too. And the only time that would change is if we end up developing more
Right,
land,
when you
like
said
the
if we
state
have
trust
another,
land
yeah.
or that. But as a whole, unless something drastically changes and we double our call numbers in the next 3 or 4 years, I think that we can kind of handle what we have looking at it. And thanks to some collaboration from one of the other team members on the director side of things here, we could also cut this in half by starting it in January.
Well, that's a good option.
So,
January of 2027, 6, yeah.
26.
Even
We're
though this is
25,
26
so
in July,
26.
it's still the 25th. I know,
FY
get
27.
confused, yeah. That's an option.
So, like I said, you know, we're willing to work and pull our share and take cuts where we need to. But
Yeah, that was an option I didn't think of. So I mean, that's trouble.
Yeah, but didn't you just say, Chief Ott, this was a need? And even if we put it off like a year or whatever, we still have the need, and we're still eventually going to spend the same amount of money. And it might even be more if we put it off, depending upon, you know, if the salaries range change and increase. So
it would be, there would still be some cost there.
yes.
True, yes.
Right. Thank
So
you.
It might not be that full 220, but it's still cutting it down if we did it and we work the same system we're working right now until January or so.
But it doesn't sound like it would be significant. Doesn't sound like it would change significantly.
I would defer that to my numbers people, because my fireman math doesn't always get the decimal point in the right place.
Mayor, council member, as far as costs, what was suggested here, delaying it to January, would cut our costs in the current budget because we'd only have 6 months. But as you indicated, this is the cost annually. So if we make these promotions, that 220 carries forward into next year's budget. So by delaying it, we are reducing the amount we're spending next year, but ultimately, the promotions for these individuals, the amount that they're getting once they're promoted is the same. And to something Paul was alluding to earlier, we are looking mainly, most of these are going to the minimum level of the range. So there's really not a lot of flexibility there in the salary positions there.
Thank you. Well, in 6 months, we'll know a little more about our sales tax revenue also be. So that's all.
Mayor, if we're ready, I definitely need to get a little more information from each of you about what you would like to do. If you're okay with it, I'd like to ask each of you if you would like to pursue the automatic aid application, and if you would like to authorize the budget to include the promotions. And each question would be 2 questions to each of you, so I get an idea of what our majority is thinking. I think we've had quite a bit of discussion on this, and I appreciate the willingness of each of you to kind of look at this in different ways to try to find a happy medium. I think at the end of the day, I can tell you, Dave and Paul and I and Trimble and a number of other staff have looked at it to try to figure out, is there a way to do this? This is the number. Whether we delay it by 6 months, it's still the number. Next year, it gets wrapped into the budget, and another 111?
Yeah, 110, 111.
110
So
gets added.
with the 6 month delay, it would be about half for next year, but then the full amount, the 330, would be included in the
Yes.
budget year after that
Yes.
to do everything.
So I think what Councilmember Skillicorn was saying, we can budget for it and then come back and seek authorization in January, if that's what you'd like to do, so that there's still the conversation to say, well, if the budget's not going well, if the economy's not going well, maybe we delay again. But at the end of the day, this is the cost. So I'd like to get some direction of how you'd like to proceed. Go ahead.
I'm good with proceeding with it because it's a need from what's being said. The cost is the cost, and it's going to increase the safety and health and welfare of our town, as well as take care of the firefighters. And it's going to match up with other firefighters.
So to confirm, then, you're supportive of both the application and the budgetary. Okay, great. Councilman Skillicorn?
A 6-month delay would be prudent. I don't see a downside to the application, though.
Sounds great. Councilmember Earl?
Me next. I approve of the application and also doing the 6 months delay.
Councilmember Calvianakis?
Yeah, I would approve the application, and when we decided to take fire in-house, I anticipated there were going to be further expenses from when we initially got the fire department kicked off. I don't see any reason to delay having adequate staffing for the automatic aid application, so I would vote for proceeding. Yes.
Okay. Councilman Watts?
I don't want to.
Hard decision, it really is.
Well, believe it or not, I understand the hierarchy, but I feel bad for the 24 guys that are not going to be at BC level. How do we handle them if they have nowhere to go? Or is that just an issue of attrition and replacement and we don't worry about it?
Councilmember, yeah, there is some of that. There would be 27 that would not be battalion chiefs if my fireman mass right. So we'll only have 3 battalion chiefs, but in that, for the other movement for the rest of the 27, at some point there's going to be some attrition. There's also going to be, if we go through with when we go through with the whole plan, there'd be basically 6 more moves in there. So there's always going to be that chance for that younger guy that's motivated, or younger girl that's motivated to kind of move up and fill one of those other spots in there. So
Kind of like the real world.
Pardon?
Kind of like the real world.
Correct.
Yeah, basically. So I'm a yes on the application for the aid, and I'd like the 6-month delay to January.
All righty. Vice Mayor?
I agree. I'm for the application for automatic aid, and I think the 6-month delay would be prudent just to keep an eye on our sales tax revenue. But I think that we should prioritize our guys. So,
Mayor?
I would concur with that, and also, we're very safe, and we appreciate the fire department, so we're going to find a way to get this done. So we'll budget for it, wait till January, and we'll do the automatic aid application as well.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Well, that was a marathon discussion. We're not even halfway done. Oof. Yeah, that's only 14 slides in. Okay, so back into supplements. We have some one-time supplements. If you did look in the book, which it's kind of hidden, so you might not have seen it. We had several other. We had 47 supplements we considered this year. And actually, a lot of the one-time supplements had to do with the fire department, but we're trying to get some of them done this year. We actually also applied for a grant to hopefully get some additional funding to replace some equipment. So there's not many one-time supplements this year we've included in the proposed budget. And you'll see that we've reduced the amounts. And it's mainly for Kevin Snipes' department with Parks and Community Center operations. So he can answer any questions, but yes.
Paul, I'm sorry, I hate to backtrack, but I had one more question. We were hiring a additional street
Yes.
street maintenance technician. I don't see Justin here to ask this question.
Yeah.
Nuts.
Where'd he go? I have the document he submitted, or we could always come back
So
to
my
it.
question was, is that full or part-time, and can that job be done on a part-time basis?
It's full-time, I'm pretty sure. Does that sound right? Yes. We can ask him that when he enters in, and we'll put him right on the spot whenever he shows back up. So the 90,000 is all inclusive of benefits, too.
Right.
Oh.
Right.
Right.
So,
And that's strictly street maintenance, is that right?
yes, as far as I understand, yes. And that would be paid out of the streets fund. Oh, there he is. Hello.
Welcome back.
Sorry. Sorry, Justin.
Pardon me, I was outdoors with economic development discussing some strategies. What was the question and who asked it?
So the question is, you're looking to hire an additional street maintenance technician?
That is correct.
Can that job be done on a part-time basis?
No, sir. Currently, one of the street technicians was moved into facilities locating simply because we have so many tickets that come from the 811 center. Trying to divide that up amongst other folks is just too challenging to train and keep trained with the proper equipment, leaving the street department with 2.5 persons to fill potholes, put up signs, and do everything else. We had originally, through attrition, worked this individual up 2 years ago now, and we've been making do. The last year when we requested this position in the budget, it was denied. We simply need this person to continue functioning at a bare minimum level of service in streets.
And I know our streets need the attention. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Can I?
Sorry, Councilwoman?
Well, this might be for Kevin. Additional part-time park attendant?
Yeah, so we're looking at adding some more times, and this is more of a, like Paul was saying, adding hours to where that we can get additional help with all the activities that are going on in the parks, as well as with the tournaments that are going on, and making sure that we have enough staff to continue to perform at the level that we're at.
How many do we have now?
It's a good question.
Kevin, more specifically, how many work on
At a
a shift?
time. So we'll have 2 on each shift, and then extras as needed depending on what's going on that day. I think we have 6 total right now. And so, like, for example, if there was an event going on from an external group, then we would add an extra person to where that event space was to help mitigate trash and help out around the event, like the lookup that we just had. We had extra staff on hand to help take care of that. But when you only have 6 people to move around, it gets creative in how you do that. Not at one time, yes.
Are they all part-time?
They are, yes.
So they basically don't have benefits?
Correct.
And is this something new, like 3 years ago? Or did you have as many, or 6 years ago, did you have as many?
Close to this many, if not the same, I would say. Rach, I don't know if you...
But then you wanted to add...
But we're right around 6 usually.
So I think...
So you're going to go to 7?
No, so
I'm
it's
not
not
sure I
necessarily bodies. Thinking of it is additional shifts. So on a Saturday, you have someone that comes in and opens the parks and works the morning shift, and then you have someone that comes in the afternoon, works the afternoon, and closes in the evenings, right? So you have 2 shifts that may be 2 different people on a Saturday, and then 2 more do it on Sunday. The hiccup comes when you say, well, we have an event in the park on Saturday night, and then we have a ball tournament going on at Golden Eagle all weekend. Well, that park tenant can't be 2 places at once. And so we're running into demands for services at multiple parks throughout that shift. So being able to say, okay, kind of sort of divide and conquer. You take these 3, I'll take these 3, make sure that the trash is picked up and the restrooms are maintained and whatever else is going on. And oh, by the way, can you run over here and make sure that this power outlet is working and this sprinkler is turned off, and can you drag this ball field? So it's a matter of we just have more demand going on in the parks, plural, throughout. And then you have 2 more pocket parks getting ready to come online that while they won't really have, I mean, the stargazing one may have events at it, but the other one just needs to have, again, trash checked and things like that.
So when we have these events, like the lookup, did they have to pay a fee? So all these fees with all these events, are they helping to pay for these employees, these part-time jobs? So are we having more events to have more income to pay for these jobs?
Yeah, the events do the special event application, and they pay for the rental, which helps to cover all of the staffing that we have. Kind of like what we did for adding, last year we added some part-time help to run our pickleball leagues and our cornhole, and those are pretty much self-sustained by the events that are being run.
Because I'm trying to follow the numbers. As we say, we need to cut our expenses because we're worried about not having enough money. Am I not correct with that? But then we're adding jobs because we are having more events and getting more money. So what am I missing?
No, actually, you're spot on. I think I'm just going to sort of pack it differently in the idea that with the exception of Justin's staff, each of these come with some level of offset in that, for instance, we'll use the park attendant. Park attendants, the ball fields are being paid to be used. So there is an income so that we can then say, okay, well, we have an additional income coming in. It makes sense that we can then pay to have more staff out there to support that income. So there's an offset. Same thing to be said with the part-time seasonal operations staff at the community center. We wouldn't need those staff if we weren't having more programs, more rentals, more activity happening. So there is it may not be dollar for dollar, but the idea that there is a revenue offset coming with each of these. That's, at least those 2 particularly have that direct usage. And again, it comes back down to the service that's expected in the community. If someone arrives to our parks on a Sunday afternoon and it is trash cans overflowing and there's sticky stuff all over the picnic tables, there's an expectation that those need to be cleaned and not, left in that manner. When you only have 1 staff person available to do that, that becomes a problem. So there's a service element that goes along with the additional usage that's being paid for too.
Rachel, let me add to that, the number of tournaments, maybe I'm wrong, but those ball fields at Golden Eagle, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, they're packed all the time now. I don't know if that's something new, but I just happened to notice that in the last couple of months, really.
Oh yeah, no, they're
Yeah.
pushing 20,
So,
almost 30-some
so
tournaments.
Gail, they're renting out those fields every weekend. So there is an offset for this.
We're at about 35 plus weekends a year where we have tournaments going on. But then we also have a calling card of a park that brings in a ton of people just in general, and our usage of the parks has certainly increased a lot since I've been here. The parking lots prove that, and the amount of people that are parking in the street on just a regular day show that. And with that comes the need for more staff to help make sure that things stay the way that they should be. And the people that are coming in are eating out more and helping with that revenue as well. So, you know, it's a vicious circle of the more we do and the more people come in, the more they use our facilities, the more that we have to make it so that they want to come back and tell their friends to come back. And so this will help with all of that.
Thank you. As I recall, the community center operates at a pretty healthy loss. So how much revenue are these special events actually bringing in?
I can give some examples. I don't know. I might have to.
Well, I mean, we're expected to approve a certain dollar amount here.
Sure.
You know, I'm curious of how much revenue that these special events actually bring in. I think that's important.
It's a great question. We actually track them separately in our financial system, but we categorize them in certain categories. So in our I'm actually jumping the wrong way. Yeah, general fund, I can show you a couple categories these revenues roll into and the total amount that we bring in a year.
While he does that, I did want to touch on, we had this conversation exactly about the community center and the events or the fees associated. And based on that conversation that we had back in February, we will be moving towards a more consistent cost recovery model, i.e. moving towards and using the fees that are set based on that direction, i.e. we will not be having additional offsets, additional reductions, additional incentives, so to speak. And we will be moving to that model as of this next fiscal year, so July 1. That will help somewhat to your point. I can't give you the exact dollar amount, but I do know when Kevin presented that, it was somewhere in the wheelhouse of $30,000 if we move to that model.
Yeah,
Which is only a couple percent. I mean, it's
Correct.
doesn't really move the needle much.
Well, but if we're bringing in $30,000 more and we're spending 10 on our staff, we're still at a net positive in order to do that.
Well, the total we're spending on parks is significant. I mean, now we changed the slide here, but we were talking a six-figure adjustment here, and then the total we're already spending is very, very significant. So it's not small.
Right, yeah. So Councilmember Skill, according to that thought, the general premise of government is when you operate programs, you're not going to make a profit for the most part. You're usually bringing in other revenues, either from the state level or local sales taxes to support those programs. But it's understandable to look at those types of revenues. On this slide with the general fund, it's not working for me. There's probably no battery.
Is it 260,000?
The 260,000 is the charges for services. That's a lot of our programs. Like I believe our community center membership goes in there.
Does that include permits and things also, though?
What kind of permits? Like special event
Well, let's say,
permits?
I'm thinking like, let's say a permit to put in a water heater that most people don't pay.
No, that would be licenses and permits.
Okay.
Most of that's made up of development permits. Some of it has to do with business licenses and things like that for majority of that. And
Okay.
that's actually what I talked to Councilmember Watts about at one of the recent retreats. That fiscal year 24, we brought in almost 1.4 million of that revenue. It was a great year all of a sudden, but a lot of that was a one-time kind of situation where we brought in a lot of encroachment permits. But getting back to the community center, most of the programs that we run and things that are going through the community center are going to be going through that charges for services or the leases and rents. A lot of times when you're renting a Ramada and things like that, That's where those revenues, so combined, yes, they're not a huge part of our general fund, around 600,000 or so, but we are supporting, some of these services with that revenue. And to some of the changes we're making, we have made several changes to the fee schedule this year to increase some fees, to stop, we're not going to make that a practice of doing fee waivers as much. That should increase that revenue. We haven't reflected that in our projections yet because we don't really know the full impact, but next year we certainly will look at that as well.
Thank you.
I'll go back.
So Paul, I think that this is a good time where we would be able to capture what the cost per park, per community center, et cetera, would be rather than putting them into one single bucket. To Councilman Skillicorn's point, we were kind of fumbling last year and saying, what is it? What could it be? What should it be? And even the comment, we're going to waive less special fees. Maybe we should not waive any special fees, but what we really ought to do is make sure that somewhere in this grand chart of accounts that we've got, be able to identify the particular facility, park, community center, whatever, and say that particular facility generated this amount of fees, and it is X amount of dollars under what the operating costs are. So do we need to adjust it because of the increase in TPT maybe?
Yeah.
We don't know. So we're speculating to some degree.
Absolutely. We keep track of we keep track of our revenues by where they're coming in for the most part throughout the town. So we are able to pull that information. It's a molecular level type of information that we don't necessarily include in these presentations. It is something our staff look at every day. I don't want to overstate this, but we're busy every day just scrambling around. There's so many things going on, even at our small town, as far as revenues coming in every day and expenditures going out the door. So we can pull that information, and I will definitely be mindful of your comments and trying to integrate some of that.
I think for next year to be a great thing to be able to have something concrete that says, here's what it cost us, here's what we brought in, here's what we need to do, if anything. Maybe we don't have to do any adjustments, but on the other hand, we shouldn't be running way upside down on what it costs to operate, so.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This conversation comes up a lot, and you did address it today, Paul, and I appreciate that very much. This private sector versus public sector, what we can expect on investment, it's something that we really have to drill down on. Fountain Hills isn't a corporation as such that we have stockholders and we're looking for return on investments. In the private sector, they're shareholders and they expect a return on the investment of the money they put in. Our shareholders are the people that live in Fountain Hills. When they have good services, when they have street maintenance technicians, building inspectors, the fire department, the people coming to put out the fires, the park attendants. This is generated on staff's observations of what expectation is of the people of this town. And if we don't provide adequate services or staffing, then it affects the property values of the town, and it makes the town look like it's a town in decline. Even if the community center is working at a 90% loss, that doesn't bother me at all, because we don't have a budget like a home budget or like a corporate budget. We get money in, we put money out. We try to provide the very best services that we can. If there's programs we need to cut, we cut them. But the programs that we have, they're adequately funded, and they are there for our people, the residents, our shareholders, to enjoy, and not say, like Rachel said, how come the garbage cans are always full? When we have festivals, the garbage cans are full, and people are very put off by that. And so, to me, I don't think we should look at this as we're running a private company. It's a public company, and if we need a new street maintenance technician or a parking lot attendant, if you guys say that we need it, I just think it's our job to give it to you, because we're not out there in the field like you guys are. So I have no problem with any of these expenditures.
I appreciate the comments. Let me just touch on that a little bit. Just some governmental accounting background. Sometimes I talk too much, and this is probably one of those times. But So the town doesn't have any enterprise funds, and that is the one time in a government that you are trying to technically be self-sustaining or maybe turn a bit of a profit to sustain operations. For example, if we were running a landfill in town, or if we were running a water utility, that's where you hear about some of these municipalities raising rates astronomically because it's meant to make a profit or at least self-sustain itself and be able to pay for all of its expenses. And so when you go into the governmental accounting or governmental fund world, like our general fund, that's the general principle. There is an element of cost recovery, though. You should be charging a somewhat market rate for services, and we did a lot on that this year. Our fee schedule has been updated quite a bit, and it's posted on our website with the updates. So we spent a lot of time on that this year, and we'll continue to do so as long as I'm here. So, yeah. All right. Anybody want to talk more about these items? No? Okay. Non-personnel one-time supplements. Again, a lot of this is in the community services department. We are recommending lower amounts. We kind of discussed each one. We're kind of getting to that point where we've included a lot of supplements already. Some of these do seem like needs. I know the soccer field renovations relate to the soccer field at Desert Vista. That needs a lot of work. The park amenity pane deals with some of the equipment that's just needs to be repainted throughout the park. So things like that. So we have $60,000 there. And our vehicle replacement fund, so this is a fund we use to replace vehicles, not the initial purchase. And what we do, it's a simple accounting concept. It's called an internal service fund, where we're basically just charging departments that have vehicles. So it looks like an expense, but we're just taking that money and putting it in this fund to save up for when we need to replace the vehicles, whether it's 10 or 12 years down the line. So that $390,000 for the brush truck is for the fire department. That vehicle is 12 years old, about 13 years old. It's in need of replacement, so that's why it's here at that amount. We do have about $2.7 million saved up in that fund at this time. So those do look like big numbers, but that's kind of the concept behind them. Anybody have any questions about those? No?
Does it include sales tax?
It does. It does, yes. Great question. And there's a little bit of contingency built in that fund in case something goes wrong trying to procure the vehicle, but yes. All right, another one that we'll ask for direction on from Mayor and Council. Let me get some water real quick. It's been a while since I've had some. I know. I got the biggest one I could find. There's 7 more bottles under there. Oh. I don't know whose water that is. Okay. So for the past 3 years, we've accumulated data for cost of living adjustment considerations for mayor and council. And you'll see in the right side of the table, that's the data we've accumulated for this year. I've tried to kind of highlight what they are. The first one relates to inflation for last calendar year, that 1.6% in the Phoenix Scottsdale area. The next one's a local government and state and local government index. Basically, that's the expected pay raises for state and local government workers. I believe it's across the country. The next one's a private sector index, which is 5%. Then you have a state of Arizona minimum wage increase and Social Security cost of living adjustment increases. And the next 3 relate to broad compensation surveys that are either nation or maybe even worldwide. And then the last one is our town. Our deputy town manager conducted a survey, and we received responses from 15 other municipalities. And so I talked to Councilmember Watts the other day about this, and so a lot of them are some of the bigger municipalities in Maricopa County, but there are a lot of outerline local governments too. And this is just based on they're at the same point we are, right? We're preparing the budget, and this is what we think it will be. So it's a little bit of a guess on their part, but that's that 4.63% that we accumulated. So in total, all these indicators are at the bottom, average at that 3.53%. And the only other thing to mention is on the left-hand side, you'll see that for every 1% that Mayor and Council directs us to add to the budget, that would cost additional $107,000 in budget. And most of that's in the general fund, $98,000, with a little bit in the streets fund, economic development fund. So at this time, we'd like your direction or discussion on what you'd like us to include in the budget for staff pay.
So what are you asking here? We go eeny, meeny, miny, mo?
So, so the COLA is at your direction. The cost of living adjustment for staff salaries is at your direction.
I thought I'd heard 2.5%. I don't see that here.
That's,
Or all I do, I guess.
well, that is
somewhere.
your decision. That is what we're asking for. What number do
Oh.
what number do you want? This is data so that you can say, well, what's the average? What are other cities doing? What's the Social Security? These are all just data points so that you can kind of compare that.
This is done annually.
Correct.
Yes.
And what did you do last year?
If you look at the bottom.
Oh, I see.
there
Yeah,
you
so
go.
the very bottom shows it.
Oh, I see. It was
Full.
7% in '24.
There was high inflation, I believe, that around that period. And you'll see like some of the higher indicators above. Yeah.
I knew I saw the BLS, Bureau of Labor Statistics, somewhere, and here it is.
Yes, it's the third one, the private sector
So
index.
it's in Phoenix, Scottsdale Consumer as well. That must be a regional, well, that's U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics provided that as well as the Employment Cost Index
Yes.
and the average sector. So a couple of different places. But I think along the lines of what the Social Security Administration has provided this year, I'd be a supporter of 2.5%, not 3.5%. That's been their cost of living adjustment coming up for this coming year.
I wanted to state my agreement to that and somewhat explain why. We just spent a significant amount of time realizing that there's very little wiggle room in the budget that we currently have. And any of this amount, as stated, cuts into that 1.23 million contingency. In a time where we are seeing fluctuation and there are some unknowns, I would be very uncomfortable with taking out nearly 400,000, 380,000 of that contingency. So I'm a little bit more amicable to 2.5.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, and my research on this topic, it seems like federal employees are getting around 4.3 to 4.5%. If you look around the state, I know there's a great deal of variety, but a lot of the cost of living for the different municipalities are based on average income and average worth of the community. In Fountain Hills, I think the average person makes $100,000 a year here.
About accurate. Yes.
And when I go to Mesa, I can get my car wash for $5. I come here and it's $22 on the Sorrel Road at the automatic wash. And so it's kind of expensive to live in Fountain Hills. We try to encourage our employees to work and live in Fountain Hills. And so I think anything less than the average cost of living at 3.53% would not be acceptable to me. I think 3.53 would still be less than many of the more affluent municipalities are getting, also less than the federal government employees are getting. And so yeah, I think, I know it hurts. I know that these over $100,000 a year for 1%, you're doing 3%, but people have to live, and I would encourage a more generous cost of living to try to keep and maintain employees to stay here and work here.
I need to revise my number. It's actually, I just looked, 2026 is 2.2% is what the cost of living adjustment is, but I'd still stay with the 2.5%. But I think that is consistent with what we're going to see in the market, particularly this coming year, particularly because of the volatility in the markets today. So 2.5%.
Oh, I just wanted to shout out, if you do need your car washed, the one on Shea, you can do it for $5. Just saying. I use it all the time.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And staff, you're always appreciated for what you do. You guys practically work 24/7. So thank you. We appreciate it. We do live in an expensive place. Gas expensive. Things are more expensive. Food, the whole 9 yards. And even though we're coming into a rocky period, if we have money in the budget for this now, I think that I'd be good between 3 to 5, 3.5, 3 to 3.5% raise. So, because as everybody knows, once you're hired in, you have the salary, then you're praying every year to get a decent raise, et cetera, whatever that might be. But I think that recognizing all that you bring to our town, and it's a lot because we have a lot more events and things like that. And it's a great place to come. And I just feel that a decent 3 to 3.5% increase is appropriate and won't break the bank. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. I'll make it short. I support 2.55%.
Yeah, if senior citizens have to only contend with the 2.2, I'd have to go with the lower 2.5. And frankly, I'm still more concerned about increasing headcount than this particular one number.
The staff that's working isn't senior citizens, it's staff working every day. No offense to senior citizens.
And I would fall in the 3 to 3.5% range too.
Okay, that puts us at 4. 4 of you guys supporting a 2.5, and 3 of you with the 3 to 3.5. So at this point, the 2.5 would be the direction.
Unless anybody wants to revise theirs to 3.
If you want to split the difference, we can go at 3.
Did you say that it's 4-3 for 2.5?
Correct.
Yeah, I'm going to stay there. Thank you.
All right, let's move on. Okay,
If I
final.
may. Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm feeling the pressure here, so I wanted to say, obviously we love our staff. We love everything that you do. I hope that you feel how much I appreciate what you do. To be very honest, I make $50,000. I'm not getting a cost of living raise anytime soon. I'm sorry, but we do this every year. 2.5% is perfectly reasonable. We love you. Thank you for all you do. But I just am already feeling the, oh, you guys don't love our staff thing, and that's not the case. We're just trying to do what we can to be smart about our budget. So we love you all. If I'm okay, you'll be okay.
Clarification.
And if you need a cheap car wash, ask Hanover to get it, because that's probably where you'll be going.
Yeah, well, I wasn't putting down the staff or anything or saying that anybody else wasn't. So there's no misunderstanding. And if other employers aren't giving raises, well, that's not our responsibility. I think that we're recognizing the fact that we want to give you a raise, and I'm still good with 3 to 3.5%. I think that is appropriate. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so now we're going to get into the funds. So we're just going to talk about the major funds we typically talk about during council meetings. And I think we can maybe speed through them, but I'm sure there'll be some questions. So we're going to present the funds today. If you want to look at any individual department in particular and look at their budget specifically, feel free to let me know. Most appropriately in the general fund, because that's where most of them live. I have a link where I can just jump to the budget book and we can look at that. But for our general fund, we're going to start with projected fund balances. We've already talked about this so many times, but it's a good reminder. We're projecting to have about $14 to $15 million in the general fund after fiscal year end, so beginning next fiscal year 26. Probably closer to that 14 million, I'm thinking, based on what we've been seeing lately. But that would allow us to keep we have our reserve requirements in the general fund. That is actually going up by about $1 million this year because our last 5 years had increased revenue. So our rainy day fund will be required to have a little over $5 million. And for our rainy day fund, just a reminder, we're unable to spend that out of the general fund unless certain things come up, like a huge drop in state shared revenue all of a sudden. That's unexpected. We're able to access that under policy with mayor and council approval. So we also are required to keep another $5.01 million in the unassigned fund balance, which just means we can use that for general fund operations. So we have that reserve requirement. After that, we're projecting to have about $4 to $5 million left over of excess reserves, which policy would be required to send over the capital projects fund. So as we've discussed in the general fund, we're projecting a very slight increase of 1% of revenue for next fiscal year, up to $26.05 million, and we have our balanced budget with the same amount of expenditures. We've talked about the general fund revenues quite a bit. Here's some charts just to kind of show you, and what's kind of helpful is it also shows actual amounts in the prior 2 years, so you can see how our revenues have played out the last few years. As you can see in the pie chart, that most of our revenues in the general fund are related to taxes, most of that local sales taxes, and then state shared revenue, which we've talked about as well. So right there, that's 90% of the revenues going into our general fund, and the rest of the revenues are there below, as we've discussed. If you look at the table below, I think it's helpful, and it really shows our conservative budgeting practices. When you look at the tax revenues, we brought in about $17 million a year. The past 2 years, we're projecting $15.3 million in total for next fiscal year, 2 years later. So that's a good indicator showing you the wiggle room we do have if there is economic pressures next year that we'll be able to still hopefully be able to operate as a town efficiently and effectively. So in total, the $26.05 million, and that's the revenues. General fund expenditures, I'll talk about a little bit more on the next slide, but, oh yes,
Can I ask
of course.
a question? Sorry. Where are you collecting the fines and forfeitures? What is that from? That's a lot of money.
That's from the
210,000.
municipal court.
Oh.
Yeah, all of that's coming from the municipal court, like speeding tickets and things like that. So. Yeah, things like that. General fund expenditures, this comes up a lot, but in that left chart, our public safety is about half of our general fund budget. This year, it's budgeted for about 45.5%, with the fire department being the biggest department, and law enforcement is mostly our MCSO contract within that department. Then community services is our third biggest department going on down the line. One thing to know about community services and public works is they use multiple funds. Community services uses the general fund primarily, but they're also managing projects out of the capital projects fund. And public works, the street paving and all the other streets expenditures, the public works department manages that as well. In the right chart, it just shows you that about 44% of our general fund budget is payroll expenditures, and another 35% is contractual services, mostly the MCSO law enforcement contract. And so this is just helpful again because it shows you the actual expenditures we spent out of the general fund the prior 2 years. What's important to know about fiscal year 23, though, if you are looking at that, is that was the last year we spent federal grant revenues, those ARPA monies, on our public safety expenditures, and that was paid out of a different fund. So if you add all that up together, it's like 19.6, 19.7 million we spent on all the same types of things in fiscal year 23. Next year, 21.7, and last year to this year, our budget is relatively similar. The things I tried to spell out on the right are the things that substantially changed the general fund budget. The MCSO contract reduction lowered our law enforcement department by 6%. Our contingency going down, which is our wiggle room, that reduced our general government and our contingency amounts. The environmental program supplements that used to be paid out of a different fund, that increased the public works department by about that amount, as well as our maintenance repair line item. And then the command structure supplements, obviously that's going to change based on the changes we'll make before the tentative budget, based on the direction today, but that increased the fire department budget as well as the payroll expenditures. One other broad thing that affected our budget is, well, two things. Our insurance estimates went up in the general fund and streets fund, and our benefit rates increased. Our health insurance and vision went up by about 5%. So that all those things kind of accumulate in some of these changes within the budget.
Do we carry our own workman's comp equivalent, or do we go to a third party for workman's comp?
Yes, the insurance pool. He'll explain it better. He's in charge of that. I just see the numbers.
That we do get workers' comp through AMRP, the Arizona Municipal Risk Retention Pool.
And how's
Same that we get our regular insurance.
How's our experience modification looking year over year?
We do pretty well. I don't think we've had major increases in the past few years.
That means we haven't had major accidents.
We haven't
in the
had
past few
major
years.
stuff happen. We have small stuff, thankfully. We kind of budgeted a little bit more for when we brought on fire department. So I think we're doing pretty good. Nothing that's
So no increases in the modification at this point? No increases in the experience modification at this point that you're aware of?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Nothing major. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, any other questions? No, okay. So that was it for the general fund. Our streets fund is actually very similar to last year. We are projecting to have about $11 to $12 million left in that fund to begin next fiscal year. And one thing we've talked about kind of extensively, but I just want to make it clear, is we are budgeting out of this fund for our streets pavement management program, but the Palomino reconstruction project, it's budgeted out of the capital projects fund, but it will be paid by the streets fund on an ongoing basis. So that $11 to $12 million, depending on how that project goes, it will be lower the next year. I think I just want to make that clear because we are increasing our ability to do some capital projects, including that project for Palomino, but we are spending money to do it. So depending on how that project goes, we might have to revert back to just doing our street pavement management program next year or the following year. We're just going to have to determine how much money we have left in the fund to be able to do those things. So our revenues have increased a bit. A lot of that has to do with our change in investment earnings projection methodology and our state share revenues. But our projections for revenues have increased by 7.7%. And our budget expenditures went up by $138,000. Most of that has to do with two things: the insurance increase and the payroll for the additional streets maintenance technician that's included in this fund now. But yes.
Yeah, this is for Justin.
Sure.
I think. Yay, he's here. So Justin, is there a chart somewhere that we can all see what streets have been recently done this past year, what's under construction right now, and what's coming up in the next few months? Is there a place to see all that?
Mr. Mayor, Madam Councilmember, yes. In our presentation last year to the Mayor and Council are all of the proposed streets that were selected by the Mayor and Council. So it's in the agenda packets, which are available to all. If you would like some dates, I will look those up and get you the dates where you can go pull those packages.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Justin, don't run away. Along with that, I know it's in the somewhere online, but wasn't there supposed to be a project management chart, like a Gantt chart for each project, so we knew what the process was, where it stood at any particular point in time?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Watts, I'm not sure I fully understand the question. Are you referencing each individual project and its cost to date?
No, it's position completeness. So you've got, for instance, mobilization, and you've got staging, you've got different aspects of a project, and a Gantt chart will show you where you're at on a timeline in each of the projects. And I know we talked about this last year, and we were going to have all of the capital improvement projects and then corresponding timelines for each, so when they started and when they were, what stage they were in.
So in regards to the street paving, we don't have a chart like that exactly, but I can tell you that everything that was approved was completed Saturday night at 3 a.m. And the work that is happening right now is the direct select of El Lago. The last outlier from that is the crack fill and preservative seal on Saguaro north of Colony to Fountain Hills Boulevard. all the balance of the projects that were selected for paving have been completed. But I don't have a daily hour breakdown chart for that.
Well, it's not daily, hourly, and it's not exclusive to paving either. It's any capital improvement project, and maybe Rachel and I should talk about what happened to it. Again, chart's pretty easy to put together, a little bit harder to establish, but
Well, and just to kind of stay on, we're talking about streets for next year. We have a whole agenda item coming back for streets as part of our upcoming council meeting. So where we'll talk about streets that have been done this year, streets that are on, what streets you'd like to get done next year, and the timeline associated. If we're talking about Gantt charts for the entire CIP process, no, we've not had them, and if that's something we want to do, we definitely need to talk offline because that's not how they're structured in our system, i.e. we don't have a set start time on most of them. They're all highly dependent on A, if they get greenlit, B, when we go out to bid, what the cost factors are, because they're super sensitive to those different pieces. If a Gantt system and a timeline system is something we want to develop, we did talk about having each CIP listed online and the current process of it. But to your point, if you're looking for something sort of month by month or what the entire project timeline is, it will probably not be to that level. If I recall, we talked about that back probably in December when you guys first came on, right?
we did, right.
So that's intended for this next coming FY26's CIP process.
So maybe we ought to take a look at that and see, to Councilwoman Earl's question, something that you can get a quick picture in time of what it is. You could actually click on each of the projects and see in more detail, but there's a timeline that shows when it's projected to start, what the status is in progress, and then when it's going to be completed.
Correct,
So
and
it's easy
that's
to
a
look
little,
at.
that's a much less labor intensive and subjective in that I'd hate to put something out there that says, we're going to start your street in October, and Justin says, well, there was a run on,
Right.
Asphalt, and now we're not going to start till January. And it says, well, you told me you were, yes, we know, it's a variable. To what I think you were asking, and maybe I'm confusing the two, is that when Justin comes back with the streets item, June? First meeting in June? Is that when we have it
I believe so.
set up? That's when we'll be able to show you, okay, these are the streets that have been done. These are the streets that we're proposing for next year. This is what the budget has. We know Palomino. We know that is an identified street based on our capital improvement conversation. The rest of the streets, what I'll call the RAS recommended streets, which is our data analyzing system that usually tells us how much can we get done with whatever's left. Usually 5 million?
That's what we ask them to budget.
Okay, so roughly with 5 million, what streets can we knock out? And we give you guys sort of a breakdown of the ones that RAS recommends, what we've heard from the community, and then which ones you guys would like to identify.
So let's not belabor it too much at this point. Let's have a conversation offline, and maybe I can give you some examples of a typical project management chart, AKA a Gantt chart, so that we can look at it and see if it's something that's doable, it's reasonable or not. Some happen very quickly, some don't, but then there's at least this list that we know what we're doing, and you can see where it's at. So we'll talk offline.
Sure, that sounds great.
I just want to verify that I still would like that from Justin now, not wait till June. What's been done? Thank you.
All right. So for the streets fund, some of the revenues have increased relating to state shared revenues. Our local sales taxes, we're projecting a very slight increase, but as you can see in prior years, we brought in over $1.4 million in this fund. So hopefully we can continue on that trend of outpacing with our projections. I alluded to March revenues. I just looked at those and reported to the town manager. Even with some of the challenges this year, we are still, I just want to clarify, we are still 14% above our local sales tax projections for this year. We've had a couple good months that have buoyed that, but just to make it clear, we are above our conservative projections still at this point. Yes, it could start looking less like that in the future, and we look at that every month, but we are still able to do that and operate in our budgetary capacity using those numbers. the streets fund budget didn't change much. We still have $5 million earmarked in that maintenance and repair line item for the street pavement management program that Justin will be bringing our plans for in June for next fiscal year. Really, the other substantial increase is that the streets technician staff member supplement was included in the payroll expense line item. So for the most part, same thing, adding another staff member for the most part. Capital Projects Fund, so our capital improvement plan, we just spent 3 hours on a couple weeks ago. We do project to have about $8 to $9 million in this fund. I guess when I'm thinking of it, I would like us, after our reserves are met, to have around $10 million in this fund, kind of like on an impressed basis as much as possible. So we'll look at that this coming year. But basically, including all the projects we've discussed, we're budgeting $12.01 million in the Capital Projects Fund to be reimbursed from other funds for certain projects, including another $700,000 for contingency in case there are unforeseen things that have come up, which you've seen throughout this year with some of the things we brought to Mayor and Council. But that pie chart kind of does show you where the money will actually be spent from for these projects. And remember, that $12 million is the maximum we'll spend next year. So of that, $5.4 million will be, up to $5.4 million will be spent from the Streets Fund for the Palomino Reconstruction Project. Only $2.8 million would be spent from the Capital Projects Fund in total, based on what we have budgeted right now, because $2.3 million we'd expect in grant revenues back into the fund, and then another $1.5 million of development impact fees that we'd be using for a couple different projects. So we talk about green light and yellow light projects. Just to recap, green light projects are projects that we'll hit the ground running on, start working on, and even in some of them during the summer. And we'll only bring them back to Mayor and Council if there are substantial changes in scope or cost. So for the Community Services Department, based on our discussions in the last meeting, we have the $895,000 of normal capital projects and another $700,000 of alternative funded projects from the development impact fee funds. So $1.595 million in green light projects for community services. Green light projects in public works, $1.415 million of normal public works projects. One thing to highlight is that we took direction at the last, the CIP work session and used option 3 from the discussion on the streetscape improvement program. So what we're budgeting for, that $515,000, includes design for both Parkview and Verde River. So that's what we're budgeting for next year for that project, and it's included in that amount.
Sorry. I just want to shout out to Tama, if they're watching. We just got something sent to us that they wanted us to discuss at the budget, which an hour before the meeting, at this budget meeting, that we don't have time to go over 3.5 pages. So I apologize. Should have got it sooner, but hopefully we're covering what you guys want.
And Paul, the $515,000 for the improvement, you said it includes design. Does it also include the modifications, or is that purely design?
Purely design. Yeah, design for both. So both of those projects. So at first we were staggering it more, where it'd just be the design of just one of the streets. We're doing both streets, and that's the estimated cost for design.
Also, isn't there a grant that we're getting about $100,000?
Yeah, about $95,000
yeah.
towards the design.
Yeah.
And just to go back one slide.
Sure.
I'm still lost on Pleasantville. Where is Pleasantville? I thought that was a movie.
Kevin, you want to?
Yeah, so that's the new park that's going in at Bainbridge and Golden Eagle Boulevard that we've been talking about for the last couple of years. It was supposed to be activated this year, but we moved some funds around and, or some budget authority around for streets. And so it's got moved to this coming year instead of this fiscal year.
Who came up with the name?
I've named it that since
Since day
I saw
one.
it, yeah. And this is many, many years ago.
Well, maybe you can help Rachel with the Chat GPT stuff coming up.
To be clear, sometimes it's been called the Stargazing Park,
Yeah.
if that helps. We have joked internally that the name needs to be decided, and we do not have a name necessarily settled on Pleasant. So therefore, Kevin said, well, it's his park, so he got naming rights, unless and until someone exercised higher authority.
Call it Gazer Park.
And at that time, the idea of it was more yoga, Tai Chi type classes and things like that that made more sense with that. Then now that
Pleasantville.
we've moved it over to the
Okay.
stargazing side. But enjoy your movie.
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If we could go to the next slide, please.
Sure, of course.
Again, I would just like to renew my objection to the $500,000 to the downtown streetscape improvement project. I understand that it's going to be significantly more this year because we're going to be doing Parkview and Valley Verde. You know, when I was elected a couple of years ago, it was all just roads first. That's what our directive was. And when this council came in, it seemed like our direction was on roads. One of the biggest chastisements that we've received, at least I've received, was, you know, just too many studies, too many designs, you know, roundabouts, this, that, and the other. You know, once again, as I look at the streetscape improvement project, you know, I did have an opportunity to meet with residents of Park Place and with people that live in that area. The biggest thing was they didn't know about it, even though I know we had two work sessions that had maybe 60 or 75 people there. But it's going to be a lot of inconvenience. It's a lot of money for a study. Particularly in light of the fact of all the cost cutting we've done here today. You know, it seems like we're putting off funding the fire department. Our cost of living adjustment for our employees is low. And then for us to spend $515 just on a design study, it just seems out of whack with our current budgeting. And then when you put on top the $10 million, it's going to be on top of that, which is, again, not going to be to improve the roads that I hear about constantly, but it's going to be to expand sidewalks, maybe 6 feet to 8 feet, and to do cafe seating in downtown when there really isn't very many cafes. So, you know, at this point, I just want to renew my objection to this expenditure and the expenditures that come thereafter. Too much money.
Councilwoman, we're not talking about putting cafes on Verde River and Parkview, and I think
No, that was downtown.
I
Yeah.
know. So our focus
for the
now,
future.
our focus now is on Parkview and Verde River, and I thought you had a leadership project that dealt with lighting and crosswalks in that area as well. Are you still against this?
Actually, my leadership project was for the whole town, for the downtown area, and also for going into all the parks and the highly used traffic areas. And I still think that'd be a really good idea, because Fountain Hills is very unsafe at night when people walk around. But no, I would be for the lighting, and I think that's a very good idea. And actually, I've discussed this with Amanda. There's a lot of merit in some of what we're doing with the improved lighting, with some of the kitschy upgrades and improvements. You know, I'm all for that. I'd like to see the downtown area improved, be a little more friendly. But it just seems to me that a lot of this is just sidewalk improvement, and that I just haven't heard the people of this town request.
So I think the direction that we've heard from when we had those public meetings, maybe Amanda wants to comment on this, was that we were going to wait on the downtown, the avenue, and our focus now is on Parkview and Verde River. And there's no sidewalks, there's very little sidewalk there to widen, so I think it would be new sidewalks, but the design is for that. And we have a grant for $95,000 that are going to offset a little bit of this as well. Amanda, do you want to comment?
Sure, you guys are dragging me into this. Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Calavianakis. So again, in 2024, we held 6 focus groups with key stakeholders, Plat 208, TAMA, et cetera. We then had 4 electronic surveys that went to the entire community, and we had an open house in May of 2024 where over 100 folks attended. It was more of an open house style. And so what you're seeing is based on that. We were asked last month to hold a public meeting. We did that, and so we want to make sure, like I mentioned a few weeks ago, some of that was met with emotion and fear, and some of the businesses followed up with me with that. So we now don't want to meet that response with fear, and we shouldn't do this or negate all of last year's process based on a 90-minute meeting, is my professional recommendation. And so what we are doing is we're starting in year 1 with Verde River and Parkview, and we've put the avenue to year 4 or 5, and what I respectfully requested from this council was to keep that until we had more conversations with TAMA. As Councilmember Earl said, and I was actually on the phone with one of the representatives of TAMA, and she's like, if you could represent us, and I said, with all due respect, I can't. It's now we're 30 minutes away from a meeting, and I haven't digested. I'm good at multitasking, but listening, reading, can't do. So again, we're just looking at this. And I would also ask this council, again, we've been talking about this since 2009. 2 years ago, staff requested we start Parkview, and we did nothing, and we can't continue to do nothing. This is an investment in our economic development to position us and to be attractive and to work on the mayor's initiative to attract a major employer. And I told John I may go here today. So last night at 5 o'clock, he had plans set out on his desk. He still has to review it. But on Parkview and Verde River, someone proposing an automobile gallery. So this is what we're getting if we continue to do nothing, if we don't do an overlay district or make improvements, because our developers and businesses aren't seeing a vision. The downtown strategy and vision that was unanimously approved is going to get there. But Parkview right now, it looks like an industrial area, so we're going to get industrial-like uses, just to be very frank, if we continue the path of doing nothing. And to Councilmember Calavianakis, you have been very upfront, open, and transparent. But again, what we've heard from this council is to move forward. And so again, we're here today with the town manager's recommended budget, Paul's budget of, are we moving forward and green-lighting, or do we need to remove this? I saw Councilmember Watts and then Councilmember Skillicorn, Mr. Mayor.
I was next after Rod's.
She's gonna
Okay, so-
check me.
That's where we're up here.
So my question is, the 515 is for, and it really isn't, probably not for you, it's probably for Justin. The 515, can you give us some idea of the scope? It's not a study, it is a design, and the depth and the breadth and width of the scope of the design.
Yeah, so we're going to defer that to Justin, and I'm also happy to send, we had provided to council, I think back in February, the breakdown of what everything is including. And so
Right.
I appreciate Councilmember Watts, you saying it's not a study. 'cause
Yeah, it's not. And the other thing is that the 4-page letter that we got today from TAMA, all of the signatures were dated 4/8/25. That means they collected them today. We've had how many meetings prior to today? And while we'll take it into consideration from the council's perspective going forward, it's kind of like, where were you in the last 4, 5, 6 meetings voicing your opinions? This is the 11th hour. So Justin, if you could give me a little bit of scope, depth and breadth.
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Watt, so the analysis of the intersection for lack or the area is already completed, and that was done by the staff and a little bit of work from a consultant. That's when we found out what people were thinking and what they wanted. The next phase, this money represents design. And there is a relatively large scope that goes with that design, including all of the necessary infrastructure, meeting any state or federal requirements in regards to accessible routes. We want to look at lighting, we want to look at seating, we want to look at an area that's inviting to those that are going to come. As stated earlier, on the rejection list, we received $95,000 from MAG for a 15%. So that's the design concept report. The town engineer and I have been on the phone with MAG and the on-call engineer that will be conducting that, kind of streamlining things. We want to do the best we can to utilize MAG's money to get us as far down the street, for lack of a better description, on this as we can, including some of the critical data about survey and existing utilities or any conflicts. The money that we are asking for next year is just for the design with an offset of $95,000 from MAG. Please note, we do not know what that cost is because we have not yet solicited our on-call. We will do that as part of the budget process and ideally be back here before the council goes to break in the summer and ask for an agreement for a contract. Just before that time, we will actually know the cost for the design for this phase.
So that design is inclusive of above ground, underground utilities, so we don't run into something unintended when we actually start physical construction.
Correct.
Thank you.
Now may I go, Mayor?
Can I just add
Thank
to,
you.
Mr. Mayor, to Councilmember Watts? We're also hoping, so Public Works and Economic Development had a meeting last week, that in doing this too, it's preparing us by the spring, hopefully, to also prepare construction documents. So just wanted to add that again, it's not a study, it's much more entailed. This spring? Next spring. You're welcome. We're not that good.
So I just want to follow up with, I don't think we're going to draw a lot of people to our town if all we have is beautiful streets. Yes, the streets need to be done, and we are doing that. I appreciate that we're doing that, but we also want to attract them here for fun things to do, going out to dinner and enjoying time downtown and the events and whatnot. So very briefly, TAMA is very excited about what we're doing, the planned improvements for the avenue, and they all do agree that they support beginning their construction phase with Parkview and Verde. So they're happy that we're doing that. And I just want to say, I don't know, if you just fix up the inside of your house or whatever, you're not going to draw people if the outside isn't nice. So you need to do everything all at once, and I think we can walk and chew gum at the same time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I just want to instill that I support the vision of what we have for, especially these capital projects. We've worked on this. I think we know where we stand on it. My only thing is that because I haven't seen the upcoming sales tax numbers, I'm very much like a yellow light. When we talk about the red, yellow, green, I'm very much a yellow light on everything until we see trends on sales tax revenues, which we may or may not see a lot of those trends before we have to vote on this budget. So even though I at this point in time, we're far enough in the process, I do not support pulling anything off of this, but I would like things to come back to council before we actually start signing checks.
On that note, if that's what we want to do, and Justin actually mentioned bringing this one back, traditionally if it's greenlit, it doesn't come back. So I know that is, so if we want to do that, I'd like to make sure that if there are others that we can, if you want to see them all come back, we can do that. If you want to see just this one or particular ones, I will tell you the logistic challenge that comes with that is that once this council takes a break in June, we don't meet again until September. That means July, August, and most of September is now unusable time to accomplish any of these things. So we've now shortchanged ourselves and we have 9 months to try to get everything done. I get it, I do. And I think that projects of high concern or that need oversight or have changing variables, absolutely. If there are other ones that the council agrees that are priority and give the green light to, I'd like to at least get some of these moving in July. But I would like your feedback on what those may be.
Yeah, and if I may, yeah, I'd like to green light everything, and just take Councilmember Skillicorn's caution of going yellow with the downtown streetscape until maybe the fall, and revisit it then. It's not there's no hurry, so we can get our financial house in order and see if this is something that we can afford.
We gave this a green light, and revisiting it time and time and time again, I don't, we gave the green light on it. She did the whole presentation. She's done all the studies, et cetera. It's been before us, and I think it should be kept a green light. I do.
Hold on to your chairs, everybody, because I agree. For the downtown project, we have had lots of conversations about it, and I greenlit it before. I'll greenlight it again. I believe that this is a can we continue to kick down the road, and somebody's got to do it. And I think we almost risked that being the case with the fire department an hour ago, right? That's something that we need to do, and we came to a solution to make sure it got done. We have not given our downtown that same consideration, and I know it's two very different priorities, but my point is downtown has been kicked down the road for a long time.
I'm going to interject and say I'm a green light too. Next slide, please. No, I'm just kidding.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilwoman Earl?
Yeah, she wanted to hear from all of us. So yes, we decided green light. Let's do green light. This back and forth is, we're not going to get anywhere. So let's just stick with green light. I think Alan said green light on this. Did you say that, Alan?
So my position is that I want to see sales tax numbers. But I was curious, what's the posting requirements for a special meeting?
That's a good Bev question.
24 hours. That's our minimum.
That's what I thought.
So realistically, I don't take the summer off, guys. So I don't have a problem with that. I mean,
I don't think a lot of us do. So your question about trends, I think we see the trend right now. It's volatility in both our sales tax revenue. It was up the last couple of months. It was down a month or two before that. The market's the same way. So I think the trend that we're seeing is going to be volatility going forward.
Could I just add real quick? Thank you, I know you're being funny. So Councilmember Calavianakis said there's not a hurry. So again, just want to paint the picture for the public and for council that we have our internal policies where we have to put things out to bid. There's 30 days, there's 60 days. And again, we're trying to get construction documents by April so that too we can respect what the community is saying, which is also our business community, to try to start some of this construction during the summer. So there is that little bit of a hurry. So just wanted to make that note that if we delay it, now we're going to be in October, and if we start doing this construction, I'm not just going to hear about it. I'll make sure they have your guys' email and phone numbers. Since Councilmember Skillicorn doesn't take off, he's 24/7.
All right, next slide.
I think it's going to be a green light. I think comparatively speaking, $10, $12 million, we're going to give $500,000, $450-some thousand dollars, that we will have it. This is much like the traffic light at Palisades and Palomino. We've still got the design. We've still got the result of that design. So I think worst case is we get to the final, we get the design, and we say we're going to hold off because the revenues aren't going to be there.
So to that point, we do regularly update mayor and council on progress of capital projects, and we've built that into our green light process. Yes, it's still kind of new, but if we get bids and they're well above what we were expecting, or it's completely different than what we presented mayor and council, we would be required by our own policy to come back and explain it to you. to get that additional green light. So there's some safeguards built in. So based on the CIP work session, there were 2 yellow light projects where we will kind of research what needs to be done and bring them back to mayor and council next fiscal year. And so that's $600,000. The Golden Eagle area improvements project, that one's a little bit hard to explain, but we do have an anticipated grant from the flood control district, but we kind of have to see how much the dam that we plan to construct will cost. So that will be a good opportunity to bring it to mayor and council at that time. So that's why I interjected and thought it could be a good yellow light project for the town. So with that, I will bring Justin up one more time. There's kind of been something that just recently came up that's not included in the proposed budget, so I'll have him come up.
Thank you, Paul. Mr. Mayor, council members, as part of planning, we have to try and determine whether or not the projects approved in this year are going to be completed before June 30th. For any work completed on or before June 30th, we can pay those invoices provided that they are delivered to Bea and her small group, ideally by the end of July, August at the latest. This money is a placeholder for any work that may be necessary after June 30th. We don't intend to spend it, but we certainly don't have the ability to do so if we don't ask for it as part of the budget. And that's what this ask is for, a little bit of uncertainty on the wayfinding that I'm not certain about, and we've had a lot of discussion about it internally with the town manager, and this is the best case, is to simply ask for some money, understanding that we will not use it if it's not needed.
And just to clarify, it's not additional money we're requesting, it's just the permission to spend next year in case we need it, because it doesn't get done this year.
I'm good with that.
I approve.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Just to
I'm
be
good with it too. I just had a quick question.
Sure.
Sorry.
Justin.
It's always me, right? With the 50K, I understand that it's not technically extra money for the project. However, as far as the expenditure limit goes, I know the goal is to be $1 under that. Is that 50,000, although it would be a small chunk, is that coming from our contingency that you mentioned?
Yeah, so Vice Mayor, the way I was thinking of doing it was our capital projects contingency. We built 700,000 there. I will say I'm a little bit nervous that's a small amount because we're doing so many projects, but we are at a point where I don't feel too comfortable adding more to our budget. So I can discuss internally with the town manager. We would either just add it to the budget, another $50,000, and just plan to use a little more carry forward, or reduce our capital projects contingency a little bit to make that happen.
Okay. Thank you. And again, I am for it. I just wanted clarification. Thank you.
And Paul, I thought that the wayfinding sign project from 25 was already paid for or budgeted. So is this in addition to the money that was budgeted previously, or is this the remainder that we just want to roll over into 26?
Remainder to roll over. It's just in case we don't, because the accounting standards require us to pay when the services or construction is provided. We can't pay fiscal year 25 budget if it's done in fiscal year 26.
Right.
So it's just to make sure we have the budget to do it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right, getting closer. Facilities Reserve Fund, we bring this up a lot in council meetings. This is where we're saving for the lake liner right now. It's all in the same fund, but we keep track of it separately. So right now we have about $5.4 million including accumulated investment earnings towards that lake liner project. We also have another $1.8 million approximately for other repairs and maintenance as needed. We found, and since I've been here, we found that there's an increased need to basically use this fund. And some of the projects that we've brought forth to mayor and council in the CIP plan would probably better fit in this fund. This fund is supposed to, we created this fund as a town to be able to, let me explain it this way. Our CIP fund is to build long-term improvements, build parks, build things like that, build facilities, maybe extend the useful life of a facility. This fund is for the repairs, maintenance, and replacement of those facilities. So some of the things we've discussed are a little bit counterintuitive in the CIP plan, like the roof design that's a replacement, right? We should be using this fund. The chiller project, we should be using this fund to replace a chiller. So we found a need to increase the budget here. We've probably been under budgeting, and there was actually a capital reserve study done in 2016, so almost 10 years ago, that recommended we set aside about $960,000 a year for this purpose. So we're here today to propose an increase to that budget to up to $1 million. And we would do some of these projects that are now in the CIP plan going forward, you know, more so from this fund, and try to catch up on some of these repairs and maintenance that are needed as well. So that's what we're proposing.
And I agree with that. I did have one question. Do we have any idea as to a dollar amount that we're going to add to the Lake Liner Reserve? I don't want to put you on the spot, but
right. So, Mayor, if we, let's say, the likely scenario, what I'm looking at now is 3.5 to 4.5 million, somewhere in that range is what we're going to have in general fund reserves. It depends. Like the next few months, all our local sales tax revenues plummet, maybe not. If we have 4 million, I would probably recommend budgeting about either $500,000 or $1 million to go into that. I think it's prudent to save for it, especially now that we're planning to start spending towards that project in fiscal year 28. But it's like a day-by-day thing. So I recognize that's a priority and something we need to save for. So it's just left to be seen. One other point to make is we probably need to budget this much in this fund. We need more ability to do these things. But that also means we need to fund it, because one thing that our team was talking about earlier when we were looking at this chart, you see that the revenues are very small, because all we really budget for revenues in this fund are investment earnings. And most of those investment earnings are actually for the Lake Liner, because that's the bigger balance. So we actually put money in this fund through our general fund reserves. So we have to make sure we continue to do that to a reasonable level. But we do have that wiggle room with the 1.8 million of savings we already have in this fund for that purpose. So anyways, all I'm trying to say is we need more money, or we need more budget, but we also need to make sure we're putting money in there to accomplish that. So it's kind of a give and take. We might have to look at it year by year, but we're definitely, we discuss it all the time, really, the needs with this fund. So that's what we're proposing. We would like your direction of if you'd like that included in the tentative budget, but that's what we're proposing today.
Thank you. The Lake Liner. I know we've all spoken about this, and we were hoping to put at least $1 million, and I think, I don't have it in front of me, but I think in the year 27 or 28, we're going to be adding like 3 million or whatever, so hopefully in a couple years we'll have 10 to $15 million in it. But I think last year we waited till the end and saw that we had extra money, for lack of a better word, and we were able to transfer $1 million into it. So do we wait on that, or can we earmark it, or if there's any way possible to put 500 or $1 million in the Lake Liner?
I think that's exactly what Paul was just talking about, is we don't know how much we have to put into that until this fiscal year concludes. So that'll be a discussion this fall when we know how much available funds any reserve that we have available. And that's what the conversation is let's just say, and I think you mentioned 3.5 to 4 million is where you're estimating. But again, that's a scary estimate, because we still have a quarter, we have the last quarter to get through, and we just talked about the volatility of sales tax rate, so we don't really know what that number is. But if you say for conservative purposes, let's just say it's $4 million, well, generally part of that goes into our CIP, part of that goes into streets, some of that has gone into the facilities reserve, and some of that has gone into the Lake Liner. So it's going to be, how do we want to divvy up those funds?
In my opinion, it would be prudent, and thank you, Town Manager, it would be prudent to wait until after the audit's complete to make some of those decisions. Maybe we could budget some of these transfers in the final budget. But the reason for that is because there is uncertainty, and because we increased our projection for investment earnings in the general fund. So if we keep those monies in the general fund until we make that decision in the fall, that gives us a little bit more wiggle room with our investment earnings. So that's kind of my preference for this year. Mm-hmm. Definitely thinking about it, I promise you. It's conversations all the time about that. But getting back to the budget, does anybody have any issues with the 1 million?
I support you doing this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I just have one other question, and that would be, I know sometimes you can use funds for some things, not for other things. Since we do have 5.4 million, say, for the lake liner, and we have 1.8 million for other repairs, for that other repairs money, since this is going to be a major project, maybe a 2-year project, can we use those funds to at least fund the study to determine how to replace the lake liner? So we can avoid all the problems with sludge removal, hiring a company to do the lake liner. I mean, because 25 years ago it was kind of rough, and I don't think we're going to be hiring that company again. So I think we're kind of a big bill just to design this thing, and if we could use that money, then we could leave the money alone, at least the 5.4, for the lake liner and not the study.
So the answer is you're going to rob Peter to pay Paul if you do that.
Okay.
The lake, you are correct. We want to begin a plan, and we need to. Sorry, Paul, I don't.
No, perfectly accurate.
So the 1.8 is made for the rest of our maintenance, whether that is, whether that's a roof that goes down, a chiller that goes down, a irrigation leak that happens, a sinkhole that happens in the middle of a roadway, whatever that is for, and really that should be much higher is where we're going with this. That number has been underfunded because it's supposed to be taking care of all of our maintenance needs across our entire town. And we just haven't, since 2016, we've underfunded it. That being said, as we continue to put money into the lake liner, our first, let's call it a withdrawal from that lake liner fund is scheduled for FY28.
Yes.
And that's when we would get the plan, when we would start contracting with a company to help us devise how are we going to do this plan so that when we're ready to implement it, it's good to go. But so that we'll continue to build up those savings up until that time.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, I think, so we're good with this budget, okay. Yeah. Another major fund we sometimes talk about relates to our special revenue fund. It's where we basically record our grant revenues and expenditures that are not related to capital projects that we've already planned for. A good example is the Four Peaks restroom project. So it's actually similar to our general fund. We basically budget the revenues to the expenditures, and any grants that we bring in and we spend them, that doesn't count towards the expenditure limitation. So we could increase this by 5 or 10 million. It really wouldn't make a difference other than the fact if we got the grant and we spent it out of this fund. So all we're trying to do, we are proposing an increase of $500,000 to this fund just because of the increased grant discussions. If we do receive grants next year, it gives us a little bit more ability to spend them and complete some of those projects. We did apply for a grant for our fire department, trying to replace some outdated equipment. So just trying to give us a little more wiggle room in case we do get grants. So that's really the explanation for the increase in this fund. Anybody have any comments or questions? No? Okay. Good, that was easy. Economic development funds. So the Economic Development Division and the director, when we're talking about any of her initiatives, they come out of these three funds. Economic Development Fund, Downtown Strategy Fund, and the Tourism Fund. And the estimated beginning fund balances for those funds are at the top right, about $850,000 in economic development, $700,000 for downtown strategy, and $250,000 for the tourism fund. There have been a couple of moving parts in these funds I just wanted to touch on. Number one, the increase to the overall budget that you're seeing relates to those supplements that we've discussed, the $111,000. And most of them are in the downtown fund. One of them is in the economic development fund. We also have had kind of an interesting practice for the economic development specialist that works with Amanda, Lisa. Her position is paid. It's been paid out of the tourism fund, but all we've been doing has been transferring money from the economic development fund to cover the cost. It's kind of a practice we don't really need to do. It's really being paid out from the economic development funds. All we're doing in the budget is moving payment of that position into the economic development fund instead of the tourism fund. Kind of a convoluted explanation, but we're just paying it from the same place, but not making it so complicated, basically. So that's why you'll see that the budget for the economic development fund went up quite a bit. and the tourism fund went down by a similar amount. Any questions? It's kind of hard to see, sorry, I did put a lot on one slide. Okay, moving on, almost done. We have 11 other non-major funds across the town that we sometimes talk about in council meetings, like the impact fee funds, vehicle replacement funds. So really the main things to point out here that are included in the budget, the $25,000 for the court security, that would be coming out of the court enhancement fund, and $479,000 for the vehicle replacement fund. That's for the 2 vehicle replacements with a little bit of contingency built in. So with that, last slide, what's next? We're just going to make the few changes we've discussed today in the budget, and we'll come back on May 6th with the tentative budget for your consideration in a regular meeting for adoption. The important thing to know about that is that would set the maximum amount the town can spend next fiscal year, and the only changes that can be made after that point from there to the final budget would be to make any reductions to the budget. There's no more moving up at that point. And June 3rd, we're scheduled for the final budget adoption with a public hearing where council, by that point, we've already discussed so many things. So like the town manager alluded to, hopefully we're all on the same page by that point and consider it for adoption. And with that, that's all. Any other questions or discussions? Yeah, no problem.
I got one question.
Yeah.
Paul, so do the changes that we made today change that $50 million? Does it reduce the $50 million or the $36 million?
Yes, so the 2.5% COLA will increase the budget by about $270,000. The fire department changes for the automatic aid supplement will reduce the budget around $111,000. So you can expect to see a slightly higher budget. Is there anything else that I'm missing? I think those are the two main ones.
I think it's going to be close. So I don't think it's dramatic either way.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for your time.
Paul, thank you.
Yeah.
This was a big lift. I know this is always sort of your spotlight every year, so we appreciate it very much. You're not done yet, but we're almost there. The end is near.
Appreciate it.
Now is the time if any council members have any other items or things we didn't discuss that you'd like to bring forward. Now's the time.
The stipend for the council, which I think everybody received that information, and you all have hard copies on that?
I think I have a copy to, you want me to bring any of it up, Rachel, or?
If we need to, everybody has a copy here. I think that's also on your, I'll call it your tabs, on your right screen, so that you can see that as well. This is really, and I'll just sort of kick off the conversation. This is really a decision for the council body. This is not an administrative, or excuse me, this is not an operational discussion, so we'll take whatever direction you guys would like to take on this.
Does anybody have questions? You want me just to explain? I know Alan doesn't like this, but Alan and I don't agree. But what, if you'll see here, I did a Excel spreadsheet in your paperwork, if you see it somewhere. My suggestion was increasing our pay to equivalent to what it was. The last time anything was increased was in 2000, so it's been 25 years. The first time they did a pay was 1992, and then in 2000, it was, for council, was $300. 2000, they went to $400. And if you do equivalent of what $400 was in 2000, it is, if I can find that paper, if somebody sees it, they can say it for me. I don't know. It's 700 and something here. On the very bottom? On my screen? Oh, not on my screen. Oh. Which one? Oh, my name's there. Oh, okay. So, and today, the same amount of money is, as you guys see, is for council would be 737.91, and the mayor would be 1,099.67. My recommendation was to round that up to mayor 1,100, council 750, and that's, if you want to discuss that at all. Oh, what is it? That, well, here. That was option A and B, if somebody wanted to go higher. But if we were just being across the board, same as we were basically in year 2000, what money was worth then, keeping it at the same. We do have some more expenses now. Everybody uses their own cell phone. Not that we have a cell phone anyway, but we are using things for council, and that was my thing. We need. I felt like we need to look at it since it's been 25 years. I did reach out to, through Rachel to Aaron and ask questions regarding the last time we discussed this, and he sent explanation why he recommended it not be done right away, although if you look at the council in 1992, they did adopt it right away, and also council in 2000 adopted it right away. And if you look at the meeting minutes, if you are using these pages, when you go to the 7th one, you can see the rationale for their attorney, why it was okay to do it right away. And he gives his whole explanation on, it was on there, in their meeting, his explanation why he recommended that they could do it right away. So, and then also, it is in Title 9 for councils, that the council determines what our stipend, or salary, they call it a salary is. So it doesn't have any, in that area, a time constraint of when it can or can't be done. So it's open for questions or discussion. It's not me, I'm just suggesting, and then just for us to discuss.
I have a question, please. Go ahead. I have a question of Aaron. I think we spoke about this 2 or 3 years ago, and it came up that if council did agree to an increase, it couldn't be imposed for a certain amount of time or term or whatever the case may be. Is that still the case? Because I want to understand the whole parameters of it, please.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, that continues to be my interpretation. Obviously, past attorneys have done it differently in 92 and, was it 2000? 2000. I don't know why they advised what they advised. I don't know what their basis for it was. I know what my basis for it is. The council's received it. So ultimately, there's precedent for it if you choose to have it take effect sooner rather than later. So there is precedent that's been done in the town. I don't necessarily agree with the interpretation, but ultimately, this is the council's call.
On that note, I think whether we decide to do it right away or with the recommendation of it when the next council is seated, I think it's prudent that we do update this. It's been 25 years, and it seems almost selfish to me for people saying, well, I'm not going to be on council anymore, so the new people can't have it. But I don't know if that was a reason for just letting it go, but I just think we need to do that. And even maybe it would be prudent for our council to look at this when you're looking at the increase for the town, if it's a time for us to, if it's a COLA or not, so we don't wait 25 years. Okay.
I think one of the reasons was because of the budget. I think in the past years, there wasn't a budget, and I mean, not a budget. There was issues with the budget. We didn't have a lot of income and offset, and so for us to say, okay, we're going to give ourselves a raise per se, I don't think we felt that it looked good, but the budget is pretty prudent. It looks really good, so maybe now is the time to take a look and consider it.
Vice Mayor?
I understand that I don't think there would ever be a year that it feels comfortable to give yourself a raise. I mean, it's just an awkward thing to do. And obviously, I talked myself into a corner literally just having talked about that I'm not going to get a raise anytime soon. So, I mean, for the sake of Well, yeah, reality. And what I'm trying to say is that I'm trying to avoid any semblance of impropriety. I mean, I just talked about how I do want to tighten our belts for this year. So I would recommend that if we do it, that it's for the future council. So after my term, at least. But I am supportive of it. Councilwoman Earl is absolutely correct. It's been 25 years. And you know, things that costed $1 in 2000 now cost $5. I mean, that's oversimplified, but you get my point. I agree with Councilwoman Earl, but I'm scared to do it for myself, so.
I understand, that's uncomfortable. I know it's really uncomfortable to ask for money for ourselves. Just to note, the increase is $31,200. So basically with other expenses, it's for what we spend on a lot of other things. It's pretty minimal. I will go, whatever, I'm happy with what we do, but I'm comfortable with doing it like the other two councils did right away, with the precedence of those two councils.
Nobody wants to talk. It's refreshing. If you did the equivalent future value calculation for $400 back in 2000, it comes out to the same 2.5% that we gave to staff. In the grand scheme of things, what has happened in the market in the last few days, this is inconsequential. But there is a principle here, and somebody has to set the precedent. So if we do that, I would vote for doing it immediately and move forward with it, and it is what it is. So, but at least there's a basis. There's fundamental to it. It's the same thing that staff is getting. It's the same future value based upon 2000. I'm for moving forward with it. So.
Yeah. Who wants to talk next? How do you feel about it, Brenda? Well, if you don't want to go on the spot, I know you mentioned that Councilmember Skillicorn disagreed with you. Do you want to share your thoughts?
I like the way Paradise Valley does it.
I'll weigh in. Yeah, at $400 a month, this is definitely a job that we're losing money every month on. When you look at the expenses, you know, maybe I could get better about turning in gas mileage and all that kind of stuff. I never do. And so I wouldn't mind having a cost of living adjustment to the council stipend. I wouldn't be opposed to that. Whether it is reactive from before, I know that this council has discussed past precedent a great deal, but we've also discussed the law a great deal, and so for me that's kind of a difficult decision. You know, whatever the council is comfortable with, I would be comfortable with. Whatever the consensus is, I'd be willing to go with either implementing it now or later, depending on what you think, Mr. Mayor, and the rest of the council's input.
Why don't you make it 1-3, and then I'll be the tiebreaker.
You know, this is a tough one. Personally, I would wait. I think we just gave the town staff a 2.5% increase. I can't see going any more than that. If we do anything, it would be a COLA increase, and we match whatever the town staff got. That's what I would say. Whether we do it now or for the future council, that doesn't matter to me. But I just can't see doing it after we just gave them a 2.5% increase, and we're asking the fire department to wait till January to implement a big part of their plan. So.
But those numbers are 2.5%. The numbers that she's presenting are 2.5%.
I get that. I get that. I understand that.
We
So.
just gave the staff $269,717. We're talking about 31,000 here. I'm just saying.
Point taken.
Is there an option to not receive pay? Is there a way to opt out of it? Okay. So
That would save us then.
Maybe we
if you
can save
opt
us a
out.
few dollars.
For just you.
Do we have to decide this today?
So what I need to know today, ideally, would be whether I need a budget for it.
Oh.
Because ultimately, regardless of whether, if we do it immediately, i.e. as part of next fiscal year, I got a budget for it. If you like the idea of it, but you want it implemented as part of the next seated council, that impacts the budget differently. That's really why the conversation is being had. And Councilmember McMahon, I don't have you noted as whether you'd want to do it now or later. Perhaps I missed that. Can you share your thoughts?
To do it now, but at the same time, we did tell the fire department that we were pushing them back, et cetera. So I would appreciate a little bit more time to consider it, you know, I just would. And then bring it back, you know.
Well, or would a good compromise just be instead of immediately or waiting for the next council, just do it next fiscal year?
Well, that's what we were talking about, July. Fiscal year would be July.
Yeah.
In July.
Yeah, why don't we
Just to get that on the mic, if we do agree to do exactly what we asked the fire department to do and wait till January, I'd be amicable to that.
Okay, so with that noted, it would be what I'm hearing. I was gonna say, I've got, Hannah, you said yes. Rick, you like that, you like that.
I like going forward with it in July fiscal.
You like July.
I like waiting another 25 years.
Noted, thank you.
You're not going to get now. You said January?
No, I said July 1st.
You got 3 votes that say in January. So you're not going to change to January? You're going to forego the whole thing instead?
Is that what will happen?
Right now, I have 3 for January. I have you for July. I have 1 for never.
I'm for January.
Okay.
And what are you? January. No, what about, the mayor has to weigh in. No, he said January.
All right.
You said January.
So
And Hannah said January. Guess what? You got all the votes you need.
Okay, so we'll do that. What we'll have to do, so you will still need to take action on this formally. So we will bring it back at a council meeting upcoming so that you can make the formal motion and kind of memorialize it. Is that right, Aaron?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Can we forego the public comments during that?
Ooh, I don't think so. If I can have one other point of clarification, and Councilmember Calvinakis, you brought it up, and it kind of rung a bell. Originally, when the stipend was introduced, it was to cover those expenses like cell phones and mileage. If we are going to do this in 2000, well, somewhere along there. A lot of printing, how about that? A lot of hard copy printing. We've shifted to that to digital. You know, and we do work to provide whatever you guys need, whether that is hard copy or, you know, iPads and things like that. But I would like to get away from doing mileage reimbursements with the town. We have a budget set aside for, you know, whether we registrations, participation in, I'll use the Chamber Gala upcoming and some of the other meetings and business meetings and things like that that require registration or fees and things like that. We certainly have all of that. But the stipend would be to cover any incidentals additional. Is everybody okay with that?
You're asking us?
Yes, I'm making sure everybody's okay, comfortable with that.
Do people use it for the?
It really
the
wasn't
mileage
ever.
For where?
It actually wasn't implemented, I'm sorry, until about 2 years ago with the seating of the last council. It's actually been a practice to not do reimbursements until somewhat recently, within the last couple of years.
I thought you had talked about having a mileage minimum if it went over like 30 miles.
Yes, we had talked about that as an option as well. There's been some other discussion about the idea of having a mileage minimum threshold of, I think it's 50, but I can't remember that. Paul and I have talked about it. That was actually also for a staff, because we do have staff, we have town vehicles available for you as well if you need to take one of those as opposed to your personal vehicle.
Yeah, I guess since you directed that to me, I'll answer. Yeah, I could live with the day-to-day incidental expenses being covered by the revised stipend, but still extraordinary expenses, like when we go to the yearly meetings, like in Tucson and GPAC and those type of things. If those are deemed extraordinary events, that we could get mileage, room service, whatever.
But that wouldn't go in effect until we get the increased stipend, yeah.
Okay. I think that's, unless there's anything else out there. Going once, going twice. Thanks, everyone.